Chapter 252. The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels to read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. This situation was out of everyone's expectations. Even the Crown Princess stilled slightly. The moment the bookshelf fell, she instinctively took a few steps forward to avoid the unexpected disaster. But this room was narrow to begin with. After taking a few steps forward, she almost collided with Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was the first to hear the sound and knew that someone had entered. Following that, the bookshelf collapsed and hit the door. There were no oil lamps or windows in the room. The moment the door closed, the room plunged into endless darkness. He didn't see who it was, but he instinctively took a step back, almost pressing himself against the wall. Xiao Lulang had not been unapproachable for a day or two. From the moment Feng Lin met him, he found that he had a serious obsession with social cleanliness. However, Feng Lin's skin was thicker, and he always moved closer to Xiao Lulang. The Crown Princess was slightly embarrassed by the other's action of avoiding suspicion. Usually, when men encountered this kind of situation, wouldn't they be the heroes saving the beauty? Of course, as a high and mighty Crown Princess, she would not allow herself to have any physical contact with other men. But it was one matter for her not to allow it, and another matter for others not to do so. The fragrance of a woman's rouge floated in the room. It was not the cheap rouge on the market, but the best incense from the palace. Xiao Lulang's hand that was holding the ink stick paused. While there were no lights in the room, after his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he could rely on the weak light that came through the crack in the door to open his vision a little. The other was wearing a pearl-white gauze dress. When the gauze fell, the gold and silver threads could be faintly seen in the weak light. This was shark gauze that was worth gold per inch. Supposedly, even if 100 fisherwomen worked together for a month, they would not be able to make half a bolt. This was an exaggeration, but shark gauze was a rare treasure of the palace. Palace maids did not have the right to wear it, and normal concubines did not have the right to wear it. The Ministry of Internal Affairs usually only gave it to the mistress of the inner palace, the Empress Dowager or the Empress. The Empress Dowager was no longer in the palace, and the Empress could not leave the palace. The woman's figure was graceful, like a mermaid breaking out of the water under the moonlight. It was a young woman. The room was so quiet that even breathing could be heard clearly. Xiao Lulang did not speak, nor did he take a step forward to strike up a conversation or salute. "Who are you?" After a moment of hesitation, the Crown Prince Consort was the first to speak. Hearing this voice, Xiao Lulang tightened his grip on the ink stick in his hand, but he still did not speak. The Crown Princess thought to herself, could it really not be Ahung? If it was Ahung, how could he not recognize her voice? She paused for a moment and tried to walk toward him. However, she didn't know if it was intentional or not, but another row of bookshelves suddenly fell down and happened to lie between the two of them. Since she couldn't ask and couldn't pass, the Crown Prince Consort had completely given up. The two of them didn't stay in the room for too long. The shopkeeper noticed that something was amiss and hurriedly called a waiter over to pry open the door. Unfortunately, the door was blocked, and it wouldn't be that easy to pry it open. The shopkeeper was also distressed about his own door and floor, so he did not dare cause too much trouble. Unknowingly, the opening of the door was delayed. As for the Crown Prince, he waited upstairs for a long time, but did not see the Crown Prince Consort return. He and the Crown Prince Consort had come out to be alone before and did not bring any attendants. There was only a carriage driver and 2 hidden guards that were secretly protecting him. He thought for a bit, then decided to go look for her himself. The Crown Prince Consort said that she had gone to buy sesame cakes, but he did not see her in front of the sesame shop. Thus he asked the carriage driver, "Did you see the Crown Prince Consort?" The carriage driver said, replying to Master, "The Crown Prince Consort went to the study." The Crown Prince frowned. What does she go to the study for? His suspicions were just suspicions, but the Crown Prince still strode into the study. Only after he entered did he find that something had happened in the study. His mind moved, and he walked forward, asking without getting angry, who was locked inside. The shopkeeper saw that the other party had a powerful aura and was dressed in extraordinary clothes. So he respectfully said, "I did not see clearly, it was a madam." "Out of the way," the crown prince said in a heavy voice. Everyone was intimidated by his presence and pushed to the side. The crown prince lightly knocked on the door and said, "Lin Lang, are you inside?" In the darkness, the crown prince consort turned around and looked at the bookshelf in front of her. She then looked at the tightly blocked door and said, "I am here." The crown prince pushed the door, but there was no response. The shopkeeper said, "It's no use." The bookshelf inside fell and blocked the door. The crown prince said with a frown, "Why aren't you prying it open?" But we can't pry it open?" The shopkeeper wanted to smash it open with his axe, but he was worried that he would accidentally injure the person inside. The crown prince would not use his hidden guards unless he had no other choice, but he could not care so much now. He was worried that something would happen to the crown prince consort inside. He had the hidden guards appear. The two hidden guards were both palace experts, and a mere door was not a problem for them. The two quickly took down the door and removed the first shelf that was blocking the door. The crown prince hurriedly reached out to the crown prince consort. The crown prince consort took his hand and walked out of the shattered ink ingots on the ground. The crown prince looked her up and down and asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" The crown prince consort shook her head slightly. "I'm fine. Just now, the sesame cake was waiting, so I came to choose a few ink ingots for little Chi." Qin Shiyu could not use the imperial palace's ink ingots, as it would easily expose his identity. The crown prince did not suspect her and said to her, "Leave this kind of thing to the servants. Don't do it yourself. If something happens to you, I will be sad." The crown prince consort smiled guiltily. "I made you worry, it's my fault." The crown prince said, "It's good that you are fine, let's go." The crown prince did not know that there was another person inside. The crown prince consort looked out of the corner of her eye, but did not say anything. The crown prince took the crown prince consort's hand and threw an ingot to the shopkeeper before walking out of the study. After the shopkeeper received the ingot, he did not feel sorry for the door and the room full of broken bookshelves and ink ingots. He beamed with joy and said, "Young master, take care. Madam, take care." As he spoke, he turned and scratched his head. He looked at the messy room and said, "Huh? I remember that a scholar went in just now. Huh? Why did this bookshelf also fall? It shouldn't be." He had fixed this bookshelf properly and did not put anything heavy on it. How did it fall? Just as he was thinking, Xiao Lulang bent down and walked out from under another toppled bookshelf. The shopkeeper was stunned. There really is someone." Xiao Lulang did not say anything. He paid for the ink ingots and gave some extra money. The shopkeeper was about to ask when he said, "Loss." The loss of the second bookshelf. The shopkeeper was stunned. After little Jing Kong and Su Zhozhou met his relatives, they went back to the sesame cake shop to meet up with Xiao Lulang, accompanied by Su Zhozhou and the servants of the Su family. Little Jing Kong was a careful child. He quickly noticed that there was something wrong with his brother-in-law's hand. He stopped and looked seriously at Xiao Liulang's right hand, which was hanging in his wide sleeves. "What's wrong with your hand?" "It's nothing," Xiao Lulang said lightly. Little Jing Kong did not believe him. He grabbed Xiao Liulang's sleeve and saw a red and swollen hand. His eyes instantly widened. "It's all swollen." "How did you get it? Does it hurt?" Xiao Lulang suddenly smiled and pinched his little face. "You care about me so much." Little Jing Kong slapped away his hand that was messing around with his face and said seriously, "I'm just worried that you won't pass the exam. Jiao Jiao bet that you'll be the top scorer. I bet all my money on you." Xiao Lulang. As soon as they arrived at the medical center, little Jing Kong found Gu Jiao, who was drying medicinal herbs in the backyard. He started to complain about his bad brother-in-law. "He hurt himself when I wasn't looking at him." Gu Jiao put down the medicinal herbs in her hand and looked at Xiao Lulang, who was walking over. "Where are you hurt? Let me take a look." Then she said to little Jing Kong, "Go and play with Sister Jiang Li." "Okay." Little Jing Kong obediently went to find little Jiang Li. Gu Jiao brought Xiao Lulang back to her courtyard. There was a consultation room in the medical center, but it was for outsiders. He was different. Xiao Lulang had been to the medical center several times, but he had never entered Gu Jiao's room. It was not like a study room with simple furniture. There was even a small bed behind the screen for her to rest on. The two of them sat outside the screen. The screen was not a landscape or flower or bird screen that ordinary girls liked. It was a plain light blue without any patterns. Her preferences were always a little different. The two of them lived under the same roof, but for some reason, this room that belonged to Gu Jiao alone made Xiao Lulang feel as if he had broken into her boudoir. Xiao Liulang's expression changed slightly. Gu Jiao rolled up his sleeves. She did not use a pulse pillow to cushion his wrist. Instead, she directly held his wrist with her hand. His wrist was very swollen. She gently touched the bone. The bone was fine. She pinched the back of his hand. It was also slightly swollen. It should be caused by the extravasated blood on his wrist. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "No," he said. Gu Jiao also checked his fingers. His hand was very beautiful. It was thin, his fingers were slender, and the joints were distinct. His nails were very clean. Even the uninjured wrist was as delicate as jade. If it was in her previous life, it would be the hand of either a surgeon or a pianist. How did he get injured? Gu Jiao was a little angry. Usually at home, she was reluctant to let him do heavy work. She was afraid that he would hurt his hand. "How did you get injured?" she asked. In fact, they rarely asked about these things. When Gu Jiao treated his leg, she did not ask how he got injured. When Gu Jiao was unconscious after being whipped, he did not ask who Gu Jiao was on bad terms with. Although they eventually learned the truth, they did not know it from each other. "The bookshelf was smashed," Xiao Lulang said. "I didn't pay much attention at the time." Gu Jiao looked at his red and swollen wrist and frowned. "Be careful in the future." Xiao Lulang nodded. "Okay." On the first day, he needed to ice it to prevent the extravasated blood from spreading. Gu Jiao took an ice pack from the small medicine box and put it on his wrist. This ice pack did not need to be frozen. It could be crushed into ice. The disadvantage was that it could not be used again. Xiao Lulang had long been accustomed to strange things appearing in her medicine box from time to time. He did not ask where she got the ice. She held his wrist with one hand and put the ice pack on his wrist with the other. She changed the ice pack from time to time. Her expression was very serious and very careful. Xiao Liulang's eyes moved slightly. He reached out his hand and said, "I'll do it myself." Gu Jiao picked up the ice pack and avoided his hand. "No, it's very cold." "Aren't your hands icy cold?" Xiao Lulang stared at her. His wrist was cold and painful, but his heart did not seem to feel it. He opened his mouth and suddenly asked, "Do you treat other patients like this?" "No." Gu Jiao shook her head and carefully put the ice pack on his hand. "I only treat you like this." Xiao Liulang's heart suddenly swelled. There was a strange and strong emotion filling in. In fact, she did not specifically say what she only treated him like, but it made him unable to breathe calmly. The ice pack was probably too cold. Her left hand was completely numb from the cold. She changed the ice pack to her right hand and used her ice-cold left hand to hold his wrist bones. After changing the ice pack several times, Xiao Liulang's wrist was much less swollen and did not hurt at all. Her hands were so cold that they almost lost feeling. She went to pack things. Xiao Lulang could feel that her movements had slowed down. She closed the medicine box as if nothing had happened. She did not care about it. It was just a pair of cold hands. It was not unprecedented for her body to be frozen stiff in her previous life. However, this time, something that she did not care about was cared for by someone for her. The moment she stood up to take care of the medical supplies, a slender hand reached out and grabbed her cold hand. That hand was slender and white, and had an irresistible strength as it tightly wrapped around her hand. Her cold and painful fingertips suddenly warmed up. Gu Jiao stared blankly at him. He did not look at Gu Jiao. He only silently held her other hand in his. In the blink of an eye, It was the 15th of the 4th month. The small exam before the court examination began. Xiao Lulang left before the sun rose. He sat in the carriage driven by Lu Quan and arrived at the main entrance of the imperial palace. The main entrance of the imperial palace had a total of 3 doors. The main door in the middle was large and wide. It was at least 20 feet tall, and there was a side door on each side of the main door. The left door was for the royal family, and the right door was for the officials. Today, the examinees used the right door. The examinees were already waiting outside the right door, and they lined up according to their examination numbers. Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan's examination numbers were the same. Xiao Lulang was 75, and Du Ruhan was 76. Du Ruhan arrived earlier than Xiao Lulang. After greeting Feng Lin and Lin Qingye, it took a long time for Xiao Lulang to arrive. "Why are you so late? I thought you were too timid to come." Du Ruhan was jealous that Xiao Lulang had squeezed out his position in Feng Lin's heart. He would always scold him when he saw him. Xiao Lulang could not be bothered to argue with him, and quietly lined up in front of him. Du Ruhan curled her lips. "Hey, are you nervous? Feng Lin and Lin Qingye are so nervous." Their examination numbers were closer to the front. One was 21, and the other was 37. It was said that they were ahead of Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan, so the two of them were trembling. Fortunately, the rest of the examinees were trembling as well. There were not many who were not trembling. Firstly, they had never been to the palace before, so they were a little nervous. Secondly, it was especially cold today. It was already the 4th month, and the weather should have been good by now. However, it suddenly rained last night, causing the temperature to plummet. At this moment, there was even a strong wind blowing. Xiao Lulang glanced at him. "Are you nervous?" Du Ruhan snorted. "What do I have to be nervous about?" Xiao Luang's gaze swept across him. "If you don't tremble, you will be more convincing." When the time was up, the right side door opened. The officials from the Ministry of Rites began to inspect the examinees. After the inspection, a eunuch and an official from the Ministry of Rites would lead the examinees into the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the Imperial Palace. This time, there wasn't much of a body search. After all, everyone was no longer an ordinary high scholar. Everyone was a tribute scholar. Even the weakest among them was a grand scholar. What was a scholar? That was a preparatory official of the imperial court. "Ai, Xiao Yozi, do you know who that is?" Halfway there, Du Ruhan suddenly pulled on Xiao Yulang's sleeve and used his eyes to signal him to look at a square-faced tributary scholar not far away. Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "How come you talk more than Feng Lin?" The two of them really talked a lot. This was called birds of a feather flocking together. Du Ruhan clicked his tongue. "If you don't want to listen, then forget it." Xiao Lulang actually knew who Du Ruhan was referring to. That was Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson, Yuan Yu. Just now, when he was in line, he heard the officials from the Ministry of Rites greet Yuan Yu and call him Young Master Yuan. The Minister of Rites was Grand Secretary Yuan's disciple, so it was not surprising that he would take care of Yuan Yu. As for the Minister of Dependencies, he was Grand Tutor Zhuang's disciple, so he would most likely favor Royal Prince and Royal Prince, and his exam number was behind Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan, so Xiao Lulang did not see him. All the examinees took the exam in the main hall of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. There was a mat, a writing desk, and brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone provided by the imperial court. The examinees had to sit and answer the questions. The invigilators were officials from the Ministry of Rites and the Minister of Dependencies. After the examinees listened to the Minister of Rites' instructions and singing, they cupped their hands in salute and began to sit down. The small exam only tested the 8-part essay. This time, there was no cut and match question. The question was, the Tao is not far from people. People are far from the Tao, so they must not think of the Tao. This sentence came from the Doctrine of the Mean, Chapter 13. It meant, the Tao is not far from people. If someone pretended to be profound and caused the Tao to be far from people, then they could not practice the Tao. There were many entry points for this question. It could explore the nature and form of the Tao, and it could also delve into the degree and method of practicing the Tao. The examinees were not used to being given such a simple question after going through rounds of cruel childhood examinations, provincial examinations, and metropolitan examinations. Thus, a strange scene appeared in the examination hall. All the examinees looked at the exam papers on the table in confusion, seriously suspecting that the invigilators had given them the wrong answers. The exam begins. The Minister of Rights reminded. The examinees seemed to wake up from a dream. They took out their draft papers and began to solve the questions. If there was no difficulty in this exam, it would probably be the time. There were only 4 hours. However, seeing that the exam questions were not difficult, this amount of time was enough. Even Fong Lin and Lin Qingye did not feel too much pressure. The small exam did not count towards the total score. Its main purpose was not to select talents, but to warm up for the court examination. It was also to learn the etiquette and rules of the examination hall. The Minister of Rights and the Minister of Dependencies worked together to invigilate the exam. Xiao Lulang sat in the second last seat in the first row. This seat did not attract the attention of invigilators, but there was a crutch beside him. The Minister of Dependencies immediately noticed the crutch. He asked the eunuch beside him in a low voice, "Who is that?" The eunuch counted Xiao Liulang's exam number, looked at the cards in his hand, and said, "He is a supervisor of the Imperial College." "Why is it the Minister of Dependencies wanted to say, "Why is he a cripple?" Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he felt that it was inappropriate. Since the court had relaxed the requirements for the imperial examinations, then, as an official of the court, he should accept it. However, the Minister of Dependencies could not help but look at Xiao Lulang. This was not his fault. Since the beginning of the court, there had not been a cripple who had come to take the imperial examinations, especially those who had made it to the court examination. There were many who had scars on their faces. Could this kid have scars on his face as well? Wouldn't that scare His Majesty? The Minister of Dependencies decided to take a look. If he was really ugly, then no matter what, he would drop him. At the very least, he could not present his exam paper to the emperor. They could not afford to frighten the emperor. As a result, the Minister of Dependencies walked up to Xiao Lulang to take a look. With a single glance, he was completely dumbfounded. Xiao Lulang calmly finished his exam paper. He did not hand it in early, because he could not leave even if he handed it in. In the afternoon, they studied the rules and etiquette before the emperor. To be honest, there were not many students from humble families among the 210 tributary scholars. It wasn't that they did not work hard enough, but rather that their educational resources and system were far inferior to those of noble families. If a family wanted to raise a grand scholar, they would often have to put in a great deal of effort. For example, the children of the Yuan family and the Zhuang family had great scholars like Grand Secretary Yuan and Grand Tutor Zhuang as their teachers. Just a few words of advice from them would be enough for the children of the family to benefit greatly. Even a Jiangnan scholar like Wang Yuan, who came from a scholarly family and had 2 grand scholars in his family, could also provide him with good guidance. It was difficult for the children of humble families to make a name for themselves. Most of the tributary scholars this time were examinees with a bit of family background. They had hired specialists to teach them some etiquette and rules at home. As a result, everyone's progress in learning the etiquette before the emperor was very fast. At around 5 p.m., the examinees finished learning. They took their examination cards and left the imperial palace. Fong Lin did not learn much, so he asked Lin Qingye. Lin Qingye originally knew, but after Fong Lin asked, he suddenly became uncertain. Lulang. Fong Lin looked at Xiao Lulang pleadingly. Xiao Lulang demonstrated it to the 2 of them in the carriage. Du Ruhan patted his fan and said, Xiao Liuzi, how can your etiquette be so good? At first glance, he did not look like a poor boy from the countryside. He was not bragging, but Xiao Liulang's etiquette was not worse than Royal Prince Anne's. Where did this boy learn to have the temperament of a noble son from the capital? Xiao Lulang said indifferently. Won't I know if I watch more? You brat, forget it. Du Ruhan waved his fan and did not say what he wanted to ask. It's getting late, I'm leaving. Do you want me to send you back? Feng Lin said, no need, we have a carriage. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were in the same carriage, while Xiao Lulang was in Lu Quan's carriage. All right, then let's not meet for the next 2 days. Stay at home and wait for the examination. Du Ruhan said and turned to leave the carriage. Feng Lin said to Xiao Lulang, Lulang, we're leaving too. Xiao Lulang could see that he was nervous and said, don't think about anything. Her Majesty is not a poisonous snake or a ferocious beast. Even if something goes wrong, she will not do anything to you. Just focus on the examination. The same goes for you. He looked at Lin Qingye. The court examination does not test 8-part essay. It only tests on strategy questions. You have improved a lot in this year, so just focus on the questions. Lin Qingye had been learning from Xiao Lulang for so long, but Xiao Lulang had always been a strict teacher and had never praised him. It seemed that no matter how hard he tried, he could not satisfy Xiao Lulang. But just now, Xiao Lulang said that he had improved a lot. Lin Qingye was even more efficient than when he was praised by the teachers of the Imperial College. Xiao Lulang nodded. Don't study for the next 2 days. Focus on the examination. Lin Qingye, who had been praised, got off the carriage with high spirits and sat in his own carriage with Feng Lin. For the next 2 days, they stayed at home and did not go out. On the 17th, the court examination officially began. That day, all the colleges in the capital were on holiday, including the Imperial College. More than 200 examinees were waiting outside the palace gates before daybreak. One of the examinees had left his examination token at home and was so anxious that he almost fainted. Fortunately, the owner of the inn he was staying at discovered the token and personally rushed over to deliver it to him. Although the court examination did not discriminate against candidates, if one did not take the examination, they would still be discriminated against. The inspection for the court examination was stricter. Some of the parents of the candidates who lived in the capital also came. However, they were not allowed to get close to the palace and were stopped a few hundred meters away. Imperial court officials like Grand Tutor Zhuang and Grand Secretary Yuan were exceptions. The two of them were here to attend the imperial court, and they also gave their children a few instructions. The other candidates saw this and immediately felt a huge pressure. Do your best and don't think about anything else. Grand Tutor Zhuang said to Prince An, who was at the end of the line. Prince An's number was second to last. However, because of Grand Tutor Zhuang's appearance, it caused quite a commotion. Almost all the candidates looked at him. Princess smiled. Grandfather, don't worry. Grand Tutor Zhuang smoothed Prince An's sleeves. This was telling him to focus on the examination and leave the rest to him. With Prince An's ability and Grand Tutor Zhuang's influence, why would he worry about not getting first place? As for the potential threat, he had 100 ways to make them lose their exam. At this moment, the candidates were extremely envious. They envied Prince An's talent and family background. Grand Tutor Zhuang could not stay for too long and turned to leave. Suddenly, a tall and majestic figure approached him. Oh, isn't this Grand Tutor Zhuang? What a coincidence! Who else could this annoying voice be other than Marquis Xianping? Grand Tutor Zhuang felt a headache whenever he saw him. The person he hated the most in the imperial court was Marquis Xianping. Grand Tutor Zhuang held the ceremonial tablet in his hand and said faintly, I should be the one saying this. The sun is not even high up in the sky. Why is Marquis Xianping here? Everyone knew that Marquis Xianping never attended court early. There were many people here, and Marquis Xianping was still polite. He said elegantly and calmly, I am the same as you. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted. The same as him? What was the same as him? Was he also here to send his children to the court examination? Who? The two useless bastard sons in his family? Marquis Xianping ignored Grand Tutor Zhuang's disdain. He curled his lips and strode forward. Marquis Xianping's aura attracted everyone's attention. The candidates wanted to look, but did not dare. They were so nervous that they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Marquis Xianping stopped beside Xiao Lulang. He raised his hand and seriously and solemnly straightened Xiao Lulang's clothes. Digression. Are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964/_89642826/112954036. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 253. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. Everyone was dumbfounded by Marquis Xianping's actions. What was going on? The great Marquis Xianping was helping an examinee tidy up his clothes? This was not as simple as ordinary affection. Usually, only people who were very close to him or someone who valued him would do this. Xiao Liulang's reputation in the capital could not be considered great, but in the imperial examination circle, he was completely famous. He came from a poor family, but in the spring examination, he was tied with Junwang for first place. This made him famous. In addition, he was not good at walking, which made people pay more attention to him. He was very easy to recognize. After all, there was no second cripple participating in the court examination. Most people's first reaction when they saw him was, "Isn't this brat too good looking?" Their second reaction was, "How could he be a cripple?" And after these two reactions, this little cripple actually passed the Hui Yuan exam. Everyone felt pity for him. Envy, disdain, in short, their emotions were very complicated. But no one present expected him to enter Marquis Xianping's eyes. That's right, even though Marquis Xianping had shown that he valued Xiao Lulang, no one guessed that they were father and son. Everyone muttered to themselves, wasn't Marquis Xianping a general? Didn't he look down on those pedantic scholars the most? How many outstanding talents had appeared in the past spring examinations? Why didn't Marquis Xianping favor any of them? What part of this little cripple moved Marquis Xianping to make Marquis Xianping, who never went to court early, get up early to send him to the examination hall? Xiao Lulang still did not change. There was no joy or gratitude. Marquis Xianping was not angry and continued to tidy his clothes. Marquis Xianping had never been a very good father. He spent most of his time in the military camp and paid little attention to his son at home. Xiao Hong was able to become the most talented youth in the capital. Other than his talent, it was mostly due to Princess Xinyang's efforts. Princess Xinyang was both a loving and strict mother. She had studied poetry and books since she was a child. She hoped that her son would also be full of wisdom in the future. She taught him with all her heart. Thus, Xiao Hong was born in the eyes of the world. When Xiao Hong was very young, he would wait at the entrance of the residence every day and recite poems to him. But he always came back very late, and Xiao Hong would fall asleep on the doorstep. Otherwise, Xiao Hong would recite it. He listened perfunctorily and nodded. Xiao Hong was very angry and said, "You didn't listen, you didn't listen. I clearly memorized 3 words wrongly." The young and impetuous Marquis Xianping could not lose face in front of his son. Thus, to cover up his lack of talent, he would bluff and get angry at his son. What's so great about reciting poems? A real man should go into battle, kill the enemy, and protect the country. Can you hold a gun, or can you wield a knife? Xiao Hong was very hurt. Before Marquis Xianping had learned how to be a good father, Xiaoheng had died in that fire. Only he knew how much regret he had. Marquis Xianping looked at the expressionless Xiao Lulang and was momentarily absent-minded. He quickly came back to his senses and patted Xiao Liulang's shoulder, then pinched his sleeve. "Go in." This was the first time he had sent someone into the examination hall. He did not have much experience and did not know what to do. He had learned from Grand Tutor Zhuang and Grand Secretary Yuan when he got off a carriage. Xiao Lulang entered without looking back. Behind Xiao Lulang, Du Ruhan was a bit dumbfounded. He was the person closest to Marquis Xianping apart from Xiao Lulang. Marquis Xianping was taller and more handsome than the rumor said. His every movement was noble, and his gaze was deep and dignified. This was a man who did not fear the collapse of heaven and earth when he stood beside him. His aura was too strong. Du Ruhan felt like he was about to suffocate. But such a strong man actually stopped for Xiao Lulang and treated Xiao Lulang like a parent. Du Ruhan was about to go crazy. He was really jealous. What kind of dog's-it luck did this guy have? Xiao Lulang did not know that he was receiving Du Ruhan's jealous eye rolls the entire way. They entered the main hall of Taihe Palace and found their seats according to their exam numbers. It was no different from the small exam. The court exam only lasted for 1 day and only tested one subject. The exam papers were handed out at 7 in the morning and collected at 5 in the afternoon. They could hand in their papers early, but they were not allowed to eat in the middle. They were also not allowed to bring their own dry rations. Examinees who had passed the provincial and provincial exams all had good physiques. They would not suffer from hunger for a day, but they were worried that they would not perform well. After all, the emperor was personally invigilating today. The emperor would only come after the morning court. But no one knew how long the morning court would last. What if the emperor suddenly appeared behind them while they were writing? That scene was quite scary just thinking about it. After a series of greetings, the exam officially began. The officials of the Ministry of Rites handed out the exam papers to each examinee. The Minister of Rites, the Minister of Ceremonies, and 4 cabinet scholars sat on 2 stools at the front of the exam room. There was a table and chair in the middle, which should have been reserved for the emperor. Other than the invigilators, there were also imperial guards and eunuchs on duty. Thus, even though there was no separate exam room, it was still very difficult to cheat in front of so many pairs of eyes. Moreover, the policy questions were not fixed questions like the scriptures. There was not much point in cheating. Xiao Lulang quickly received his exam paper. This was a question set by the emperor. Ask the emperor's policy and the emperor's heart. How to govern the country. After experiencing the question of removing the vassals and the virtuous, this question was much more gentle. At least, no matter how one answered it, it would not be wrong. At most, the content of the question would not be practical. It could be boastful, as long as the writing was flamboyant enough. It could also be to the point, with clear flags. It was true that the emperor was selecting talents, but these examinees had never been an official before. To put it bluntly, they were all armchair strategists. The emperor did not expect a court exam to solve a problem that the civil and military officials could not solve. Otherwise, why would he need so many experienced court officials? What the emperor really wanted to see was the mindset of an examinee. A prime minister could hold a boat. The bigger a person's mindset, the wider their future path. Most of the examinees did not realize this point. They were all racking their brains, scratching their ears and cheeks, thinking of new ways to govern the country. Xiao Lulang was not in a hurry to write. He first wrote a draft in his mind. He did not have the habit of writing drafts, but drafts were an important piece of evidence when checking the results. He would usually leave 1 or 2 drafts. After about 2 hours, he deliberated over his wording, deleting and deleting. After about 2 hours, he began to answer the exam paper. This was a policy question. Before answering, one had to be matched by an official to show that one was answering the emperor's question. The official matches. When the official hears that the emperor is in control of the world, there must be a manager of real governance, and then can restrain the crowd, intricate 10,000 machines, and have a rule of Yong 11. There must be a solid heart to advocate, and then can temper the 100 workers, shake up the affairs of the common people, and have a reason to achieve prosperity. Establishing rules and regulations, enforcing laws and regulations, suspending the various images on the way's surface, placing them in the middle of the command armor, first in the rocky corridors, then scattered in the various departments and hundreds of manors, reaching to the corners of the seas of the commanderies. Passing through the latitude of the great and the great, there is nothing not prepared. Everything is strictly guarded. There is no leak. What is a solid heart? Shake up laziness. Encourage shrewdness. It originates from the depths of the abyss, rises in the midst of the secret, begins in the palace, the wind in the chariot, pouring into the wilderness of the frontier, falling into harmony. The mind, the body, the shape, the bones, the consort. Xiao Lulang mainly emphasized the importance of governing the country according to law and the implementation of evidence. Laws and regulations must permeate the people, and the voice of the people must be heard by the heavens. At the same time, he also proposed to use Confucianism to educate the people, vigorously punish corrupt officials, and let the national treasury be filled. Of course, he also emphasized that the emperor was the son of heaven, and everything he did was ordered by the heavens. Setting up an official position was the emperor appointing a virtuous person on behalf of the heavens. Getting rid of an evil person was the emperor crusading against a sinful person on behalf of the heavens. Xiao Lulang only realized later on that this question was really difficult. Everyone's relaxed attitude when they first received the test paper had disappeared. Everyone buried their heads in writing, and no one handed in their papers early. Perhaps because he was too engrossed in writing, even when the emperor stood behind Xiao Lulang for a long time, Xiao Lulang did not notice. From the emperor's point of view, he could only see Xiao Yolang's skull. The emperor did not look for too long. He did not have the bad taste of adding pressure to the examinees in the examination room. He had just come in and happened to pass by Xiao Lulang and saw Xiao Yolang's delicate and pretty handwriting. He hurriedly glanced at it. The handwriting was not bad. He then looked at the examinee's name, Xiao Lulang. Oh, was it the poor student who was ranked first with Royal Princeton? There was a walking stick beside him. Was he injured or disabled? Actually, the selection of officials in the current dynasty was based on one's appearance. It was mainly because Marquis Xianping's appearance had pulled up the emperor's appreciation of the civil and military officials. Those who were too ugly would be sent out after a few years. The emperor was a little disappointed when he saw the walking stick. He was worried that the examinee's appearance was not good. It was not that the emperor only looked at the face. The old chancellor was not good-looking, but he was still chosen by the emperor. It was because the old chancellor's ability was too valiant. The emperor quickly walked past Xiao Lulang and sat on the chair at the front. The invigilators all knew that the examinee was noticed by the emperor, but they did not know if the impression was good or bad. After the emperor sat on the invigilator's seat, he did not pay attention to Xiao Lulang. After all, he was too far away and could not see clearly. He asked someone to bring over the memorials. While invigilating, he silently read through the memorials until the end of the exam. The examinees stood up and bowed to the emperor. The emperor casually picked a few examinees and asked a few questions. Royal Prince and Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson were both called out. Xiao Lulang was not called out. At 5:45 p.m., everyone left the palace. Although it was only a day, everyone was more tired than the provincial examination and the imperial examination. Their hearts were tired. Other than a few examinees, most of the examinees had never seen the emperor in their lives. Being under the same roof as the emperor, they almost could not write. So nervous. Feng Lin's back was drenched in sweat. His number was closer to the front. He sat in the first row. That was really under the emperor's eyes. However, he did not dare to raise his head to look at the emperor. He was afraid that he would be accused of being disrespectful. I feel like I failed the exam. I don't even know what I am writing towards the end. he said dejectedly. Du Ruhan comforted him. Don't be discouraged. Everyone is like you. When His Majesty came, he forgot what he was thinking. The emperor sympathized with them. He came after noon. At that time, everyone was almost done with their drafts. Otherwise, he would have been sitting there from the beginning. It was guaranteed that half of the examinees would not even be able to finish their drafts. When the emperor stood behind Xiao Lulang, he was also startled. Their numbers were next to each other. Behind Xiao Lulang was in front of him. He could smell the ambergris on the emperor's body. He was so nervous that his scalp went numb. However, thanks to being stimulated by Marquis Xianping early in the morning, his endurance seemed to be a bit stronger. How did Lulang do? Feng Lin asked Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang said, not bad. I wrote everything I wanted to. Feng Lin asked Du Ruhan and Lin Qingye. The two's performance was normal. However, the questions were too subjective. Whether or not they could pass the exam depended on the examiner's preferences. This was not something they could control. They could only do their best and leave it to fate. The group returned home. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the examiners started to mark the exam papers. The Minister of Rights and the Minister of Honglu were the examiners. The 4 Grand Secretaries were the examiners. This time, the exam papers were not divided into groups. Every paper would be marked by 6 examiners. The top 20 examinees would be sent to the emperor. Doing well in the spring quarter examination did not mean that they would do well in the court examination. Being able to withstand the emperor's pressure was a part of it. Being able to do well in one's field of expertise was also a part of it. However, examinees like Xiao Lulang, who had tied for first place with Princeton, had received the emperor's attention. Furthermore, the emperor had stayed by his side for a while during the court examination. Therefore, if his exam papers were not in the top 20, the emperor would definitely ask about it. It was very likely that he would ask someone to bring his exam papers over to see how he fell out of the top 20. The court examination papers were not copied. After all, they had to be presented to the emperor. The emperor wanted to see the examinee's handwriting. However, before presenting it to the emperor, the examiners would simply paste the name. In other words, the examiners would not see the examinee's name. However, if the examiners wanted to see it, it was not difficult. Moreover, after the small exam, the examiners had already memorized some of the examinee's handwriting. Xiao Liulang's exam papers quickly reached the hands of the minister of Honglu Temple. He immediately recognized Xiao Liulang's handwriting. Grand Tutor Zhuang had already given the order to not let Xiao Lulang surpass Princeton. If Xiao Liulang's essay was not outstanding and did not pose a threat to Princeton, the minister of Honglu Temple would be assured to place him in the top 20. However, it was clear that Xiao Liulang's essay was too outstanding. This was an essay that the examiners, regardless of taste, could not find fault with. It was definitely a huge threat to Princeton. During the meal, the minister of Honglu Temple quietly went to the toilet. Near the toilet, Grand Tutor Zhuang had been waiting for a long time. "How is it?" Grand Tutor Zhuang asked. "I haven't changed it to Prince Anne's." The minister of Honglu Temple said, "I only changed Xiao Liulang's." Grand Tutor Zhuang handed him a piece of draft paper. This was what Prince An had written from memory after returning to the Fu. It was almost the same as the court exam papers. After the minister of Honglu Temple finished reading, his expression became serious. The 2 papers are about the same. How could it be that they were about the same? Grand Tutor Zhuang frowned. He thought of something and asked, "What's going on with Marquis Xianping? I think he seems to have taken a liking to this child." The minister of Honglu Temple said, "Grand Tutor, I'm afraid you didn't look closely at Xiao Liulang's appearance." Grand Tutor Zhuang did not understand. What's wrong with him? He was too handsome, so Marquis Xianping took a liking to him. Although Marquis Xianping was dissolute, he was not into men. The minister of Honglu Temple said, "He looks like the young Marquis who has already passed away." When this official saw him for the first time, I was shocked. Perhaps because of this, Marquis Xianping favored him. Grand Tutor Zhuang sneered. His son is dead, and he found someone who looks similar to him to replace him. The emperor wanted to suppress the Zhuang family. If there really was someone who was about the same as Prince An, the emperor would not have chosen Prince An to be first. Before today, the emperor would not have chosen Xiao Lulang to be first either. Xiao Liulang's background was too poor. If he was too famous, he would be hated by others. If the emperor really cared about Xiao Lulang, he would not have given him the top scorer. The emperor would have personally chosen someone else to be the top scorer. If the officials had any objections, the emperor would have used Xiao Liulang's exam papers and said that if someone like him did not get first place, how could Prince An get first place? As for the top scorer's exam papers, the emperor would not let anyone see them. This was the imperial court. This was the examination room. However, Marquis Xianping appeared. He was telling everyone that Xiao Lulang was someone he wanted to protect. Anyone who dared to touch Xiao Lulang would have to think twice. This matter would spread to the emperor's ears sooner or later. The emperor would know that Xiao Lulang had a backer and would not have any worries. A cold light flashed through Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes. This brat is fawning on my grandson and also fawning on Marquis Xianping. What a way to play both sides. I despise people like him who are in one camp but are in another. 5 days later, all the exam papers were marked. The top 20 were placed in a box by the Minister of Rites and sent to the emperor. The emperor was in the throne room and was not far away. However, the Minister of Rites was halfway there when he bumped into Marquis Xianping. The Minister of Rites was slightly surprised. Why was Marquis Xianping in the palace so early in the morning? Didn't this guy laze in bed recently? A faint smile appeared on Marquis Xianping's handsome face as he said politely, "Ministerly, where are you going?" The Minister of Rites said, "I'm going to deliver the exam papers to the emperor." "Oh, you're out." Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows and reached out to touch the box containing the exam papers. The Minister of Rites took a step back and his face darkened. "Marquis Xianping, what are you doing?" Marquis Xianping smiled faintly. "I'm going to see if you did anything to the exam papers." The Minister of Rites frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about? We are all examiners personally appointed by the emperor. How could we do such a thing? Aren't you afraid of being beheaded?" Marquis Xianping said, "I'm afraid there are people who aren't afraid." Marquis Xianping is talking about who isn't afraid? Grand Tutor Zhuang strolled over. Marquis Xianping turned around and looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang with a faint smile. "Oh, Grand Tutor Zhuang is here." The Minister of Rites bowed. "Grand Tutor Zhuang." Grand Tutor Zhuang nodded in return and then looked at Marquis Xianping. Is Marquis Xianping dissatisfied with Ministerly? Or with the cabinet? Or dissatisfied with the emperor? Marquis Xianping smiled faintly. "Don't accuse me too much. I just want to see if these exam papers have been tampered with." In this world, only Marquis Xianping dared to question the cabinet. Grand Tutor Zhuang chuckled. "If Marquis Xianping doesn't believe me, you can take a look for yourself." Minister Li looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang in surprise. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "I believe that Marquis Xianping wouldn't take the opportunity to tamper with the exam papers. Minister Li, please let Marquis Xianping take a look. If anything happens, I will take responsibility." Since he said this, Minister Li could not let Marquis Xianping take a look. Marquis Xianping opened the box and flipped through each exam paper. There were names on the exam papers, but he could still recognize Xiao Liulang's handwriting. After all, he had seen it many times in private. He saw Xiao Liulang's exam paper. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at the exam paper and then looked at Marquis Xianping. He sneered, "Is there a problem?" Marquis Xianping looked deeply at Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang said calmly, "If there's nothing else, I will send these exam papers to His Majesty. His Majesty is still waiting to review them." Marquis Xianping put down the exam paper and hesitated for a moment. His doubtful gaze rested on Grand Tutor Zhuang for a moment. From beginning to end, Grand Tutor Zhuang was incomparably magnanimous. In the end, Marquis Xianping let Minister Li leave. He also stepped out of the palace. Gazing at his retreating figure, Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled coldly. He knew it would be like this. He had long been on guard against Marquis Xianping. Did Marquis Xianping really think that he was looking at Xiao Liulong's exam paper? The handwriting was exactly the same. Even the content was similar. It was just that a few key points had been changed. Marquis Xianping, this boorish fellow, couldn't see it. Don't underestimate these small details. They were enough to anger the emperor. So, what was the point of putting him in the top 20? Xiao Liulang probably wouldn't even be able to pass the second-tier Grand Scholar exam. Grand Tutor Zhuang proudly left the palace. His carriage was waiting at the palace gates. When the servants saw him, they hurriedly opened the curtains for him. He was in a good mood and smiled as he got into the carriage. But he never expected that there would be someone sitting in the carriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang trembled in fear. Marquis Xianping. What was his coachman doing? Why did he let Marquis Xianping get in? Someone come, he shouted sternly. Marquis Xianping calmly said, "Let's go." The carriage left. Grand Tutor Zhuang's face paled. He lifted the curtains and looked at the coachman sitting in front of him. Only then did he realize that the other party wasn't his coachman. Where was his coachman? Where did he go? His carriage had always been parked at the palace gates, and there were imperial guards there. How did Marquis Xianping swap out his coachman? Grand Tutor Zhuang angrily looked at the other party. Marquis Xianping, what do you want to do? Marquis Xianping sneered. Put Xiao Liulong's exam paper back. Otherwise, your horse will be frightened. This Marquis can't guarantee that you'll be able to land safely. After all, you don't know martial arts, do you? Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. You, Marquis Xianping chuckled. You want to ask how this Marquis found out? This Marquis doesn't understand exam papers, but this Marquis still understands you. Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang's face turned ashen. Marquis Xianping's arrogance often made people think that he was a boorish man. But look at what he did today. They left the palace almost one after the other. Marquis Xianping didn't have time to catch people after checking the exam papers. In other words, Marquis Xianping was certain that he would touch Xiao Liulong's exam papers before checking the exam papers. So he caught Royal Prince early on. Grand Tutor Zhuang gritted his teeth. You have guts. Marquis Xianping replied. Same to you. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. You think you can threaten this official like this? Marquis Xianping spread his hands. No, I'm just giving you a suggestion. Since you don't want it, this Marquis has another set for you. Grand Tutor Zhuang's heart surged with an ominous premonition. The carriage quickly stopped on an empty official road. There were no pedestrians coming and going. Only one carriage stopped in front of the two. Grand Tutor Zhuang opened the curtains. Someone in the other carriage also opened the curtains, revealing Royal Prince, and who was tied up and gagged with a cloth. Royal Prince looked excitedly at Grand Tutor Zhuang. He kept mumbling, but couldn't say a complete sentence. Grand Tutor Zhuang's jaw almost dropped from shock at Marquis Xianping's audacity. Do you know what you're doing? You're not holding the imperial palace hostage. You're kidnapping the Royal Prince of Zhao Country. Marquis Xianping indifferently leaned back in his chair and looked at him calmly. So, there wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes. He was as arrogant as a wild horse that could trample on everything at any time. Grand Tutor Zhuang wasn't in the right either. It was a crime punishable by beheading. It was just a matter of who could last until the end. Grand Tutor Zhuang clenched his fists and glared at Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping said carelessly, I don't have much patience. I'll tell you one last time. Send the test papers back. Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't admit that he had touched the test papers. However, this didn't seem to affect Marquis Xianping's threat. Grand Tutor Zhuang felt that he was a scholar meeting a soldier. He couldn't explain himself. If it was a scholar, He could still beat around the bush to get the other party in. However, Marquis Xianping wouldn't. He wouldn't give you a chance to beat around the bush. Grand Tutor Zhuang felt a deep sense of powerlessness. However, he didn't admit defeat so quickly. Marquis Xianping, don't be too arrogant. Marquis Xianping looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and lightly raised his finger. In the other carriage, Changjing pulled out a dagger and stabbed Royal Prince N's thigh without hesitation. Fresh blood spurted out. Royal Prince N gritted his teeth, but still let out a shrill cry. Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression changed. Marquis Xianping lazily leaned against the wall of the carriage and raised his eyebrows. Remember, this is arrogance. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his entire body trembled. He flew into a rage. Aren't you afraid that someone will die? If my grandson dies, do you think you won't have to pay with your life? Marquis Xianping laughed coldly. Do you think I'm afraid? Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. Digression. The two chapters combined into one. Note: the original examination paper came from Ming Dynasty examinee Zhao Bingzhong's palace examination paper. Part of the translation came from Sohu.com Calligraphy Lecture Hall. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/1129256545. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 254. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. The emperor was marking the exam papers in the throne room. The Minister of Rites, the Minister of Honglu Temple, and a few cabinet scholars were all present. Although the exam papers had been marked by them, the emperor would still ask them if he had any questions. They were all very nervous, and the Minister of Honglu Temple was the most nervous. Of course, not all the exam papers presented to the emperor were clean. There were a few papers mixed in with the exam papers from the various parties. Of course, they weren't bad, but those who were too weak wouldn't be able to pass the court exam. They were afraid that the emperor wouldn't pick them out and reselect them from the exam papers after the 20th place. This situation was rare, but it wasn't unheard of. Every time the emperor finished reading an exam paper, if he placed it on the right, it meant that he passed and could keep it. If he placed it on the left, it meant that he had an objection. Those who had an objection wouldn't be able to pass the first grade, but they wouldn't fall into the third grade either. The emperor had finished reading 10 exam papers, and there were no failures yet. The weather was good today. The imperial study was quiet, and only a warm spring breeze blew in from outside the door. A corner of the exam paper was blown up. Eunuch Wei quickly took a yellow jade paperweight and pressed it down. The emperor didn't look up, but he enjoyed Eunuch Wei's attentiveness. No wonder he was an old man who had been by his side for so many years. The emperor coughed softly, and Eunuch Wei quickly handed him a cup of hot tea. Look, even the temperature of the tea was just right. Your Majesty, you've been marking all morning. Take a rest. Minister Li worriedly advised. Your health is more important. I'm fine. He was just a little heaty. This was the downside of being an emperor. Even the slightest disturbance would cause him to fall off his horse. Therefore, he didn't like to admit that he was unwell. The emperor took a sip of tea and continued to mark the exam papers. He had just finished marking Yuan Yu and Ning Ziyuan's exam papers. Their exam papers were currently in the top 3. The overall strength of the examinees in this round was much more outstanding than the previous rounds. Thus, it was much more difficult to choose. The minister of the Honglu Temple was one of the people who had tampered with the exam papers. He knew that the emperor would soon mark Xiao Liulong's exam papers. Xiao Liulong's score was not high and was at the bottom of the top 20. Of course, there was a reason for this. He had written some treasonous words, but the reason why he was still allowed to enter was because he was a Huiyuan. Huiyuan did not fall behind the curtains. This was an established rule. Even if they wanted to fall behind, it would not be up to them. It would have to be done by the emperor himself. Everything was flawless. The Chamberlain of Dependencies kept staring at the second set of papers. After the emperor finished correcting Song Ping's exam paper, he was not satisfied and placed it on the left side. Minister Li's heart sank. Song Ping was his disciple. It seemed that there was no hope. The emperor raised his hand to take one of the exam papers. This was the exam paper of an examinee named Zhu Guangmao. He came from a humble family and had no background. His performance in the spring examination could not be considered outstanding. In the provincial examination, his ranking was only in the top 10. For the time being, he did not attract the interest of any party. After correcting his exam, it would be Xiao Liulong's. The minister of the Honglu Temple's heart was in his throat. Although there shouldn't be any problems, he had done something wrong. He felt a little guilty. He wondered what he would do if the emperor recognized that it was not Xiao Liulong's handwriting. In reality, the imitation was very good. He was afraid that even if Xiao Lulang himself came, he would not be able to see that it was an imitation. Of course, the emperor would not be able to see it. Just as the minister of the Honglu Temple was feeling nervous, a eunuch suddenly came from outside the door. "Your Majesty, Grand Tutor Zhuang requests an audience." The minister of the Honglu Temple's gaze moved away from Xiao Liulong's exam paper and looked at the door. Why had Grand Tutor Zhuang come at this time? The emperor had just picked up the exam paper and put it back. He said to the door, "Summon him." "Yes," the eunuch replied. "Your Majesty summons Grand Tutor Zhuang for an audience." Eunuch Wei furrowed his brows. This was a newly appointed eunuch. He had promoted him, and he did things too strictly. In front of the emperor, there were not so many rules. Summon what? Just directly let him in. Grand Tutor Zhuang was also stunned. He had originally planned on walking in openly and cupping his hands in greeting. However, this new eunuch had made the scene so formal that he had to kneel and greet the emperor after entering the imperial study. The emperor waved his hand lightly, indicating for Grand Tutor Zhuang to rise. "Grand Tutor, what is the matter?" The officials also saluted Grand Tutor Zhuang. After Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted, he looked at the emperor and said, "I have something to report." Now, the emperor looked at him. "Yes." Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted. Minister Li tactfully said, "Then I will take my leave first." The emperor agreed. Minister Li and the others left the imperial study. They did not go far, and they drank tea in a nearby side hall. The emperor's gaze once again fell on Grand Tutor Zhuang's face. "What is it that is so urgent? Can't you wait for me to finish marking the exam papers?" Grand Tutor Zhuang discreetly glanced at the exam papers on the table. When he saw that Xiao Liulong's paper was the second one that was about to be marked, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. He stepped forward and said, "When I was on my way back, I suddenly remembered that the Empress Dowager's birthday is in a few days. I dare to visit the Empress Dowager in the Summer Palace." The emperor's expression froze. He put down the imperial brush, lowered his eyes, and took a sip of tea. Then he looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and said, "Mother's phoenix body is not well. The imperial physician said that she should not be exposed to the wind or receive guests. In a moment, I will send someone to the Summer Palace to see if Mother has improved, and then inform Grand Tutor Zhuang." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted deeply. The moment he stood up, he seemed to accidentally bump into the exam papers on the table. A stack of exam papers knocked into the emperor's teacup. The teacup fell over, and the exam papers also fell to the ground. I deserve to die. He hurriedly knelt down and begged for forgiveness. He also hurriedly picked up the exam papers. Eunuch Wei hurriedly went to check if the emperor had been scalded by the tea. The emperor also lowered his head and brushed off the water droplets on his body. While the two boys were not paying attention, Imperial tutor Zhuang hid Xiao Liulong's examination paper in his left sleeve, while from his right sleeve he took out Xiao Liulong's original paper and clipped it between the examination papers. After leaving the imperial palace, Grand Tutor Zhuang saw Marquis Xian Ping with his hands wrapped in a hand warmer. It was already the 4th month. He didn't know why this person was still using these things. Marquis Xian Ping's eyes were cold and his temperament was deep. However, the moment Grand Tutor Zhuang walked over, his eyebrows rose very wantonly. "Oh, Grand Tutor Zhuang walks quite quickly. Your treasured sword is still young." Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his breath was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. "I've already put the exam papers back. Why aren't you quickly releasing the royal prince?" "I'll release him." Marquis Xian Ping turned his head and asked for a beating. Chong Jing, directly threw royal prince and out of the carriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang was speechless. The Zhuang family's coachman was also released. He hurriedly carried royal prince and back to his own carriage. Royal prince and was injured and one of his legs was bleeding. Grand Tutor Zhuang clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Marquis Xian Ping said, "Hurry up and treat his injury. Do you want him to become a cripple? TSK. Tell me, how are you a grandfather? You don't care about your own grandson at all." Grand Tutor Zhuang almost exploded on the spot. "Don't you know how my grandson got injured in your heart? How do you have the face to say such things? It's so infuriating. This guy really infuriates me to death." "Humph. Do you think he'll definitely get first place like this?" Grand Tutor Zhuang had seen Xiao Liulong's exam papers. To be honest, he didn't do much. Unfortunately, Royal Prince and had already discussed this policy question with the Chun Kingdom's monarch when they were in the Chun Kingdom. At that time, Royal Prince didn't know that the imperial examination would have a similar question. He was only listening to the Chun Kingdom's monarch talk about how to stabilize the country. Xiao Lulang was indeed a person with real talent. His literary talent was brilliant, his words were meaningful, and he quoted from classics. It was very convincing. However, he wasn't a real politician. He wasn't as experienced as the monarch when it came to governing a country. Thus, what the Honglu Temple official said was true. The two exam papers were indeed neck and neck. Moreover, Jiangnan scholar Ning Ziyuan and Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson Yuan Yu also had excellent exam papers. Even if His Majesty didn't praise the Zhuang family, wouldn't he praise Grand Secretary Yuan as well? Grand Secretary Yuan was an official who had served 3 emperors. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. "Don't be happy too early. The top scorer might not necessarily be that kid's." Marquis Xian Ping's face was calm. "I'm not listening. Bastard, keep chanting." Grand Tutor Zhuang was speechless. "You're the bastard." What kind of person was this? Grand Tutor Zhuang couldn't stay any longer. If he stayed any longer, his life would be shortened. Grand Tutor Zhuang left in a huff. Marquis Xian Ping tilted his head and curled his lips. "Take care. I won't see you out." At this time, in the imperial study, the emperor was indeed hesitant about how to rank the top 3. Grand Tutor Zhuang had been loyal to the emperor for many years, so he had a certain understanding of the emperor. In terms of the depth of the essays, Royal Prince's paper was the most thought-provoking. In terms of literary talent and the structure of the examinees, the emperor liked Xiao Liulong's paper more. However, Ning Ziyuan and Yuan Yu's papers weren't bad either. Of the 4, the youngest was Xiao Lulang. He was 18 years old. Royal Prince was 19 years old. Yuan Yu was 25. Ning Ziyuan was the oldest at 30. As for their family backgrounds, Ning Ziyuan and Xiao Lulang came from humble families, while Royal Prince Anan Yuan you came from noble families. Alright, Xiao Lulang was that little cripple, wasn't he? Thinking of the crutch he saw, the emperor frowned. All the examinees and their families in the capital began the long and anxious days of waiting for the results. Although everyone was basically a jinsher, and the worst was a jinsher, no one was willing to be a jinsher. The incense in Puji Temple flourished again. It was said that all the examinees came to pay their respects. In Chishui Alley, the family seemed to be calm, but in fact, they couldn't sit still. Old Madam didn't secretly eat candied plums or play cards. She ordered the old chancellor to buy skewers on the street every day. In fact, she was just asking for news. Madam Yao did make snacks these days. At dawn, she went to the neighbors' houses to visit. In fact, she was also waiting for news. Little Jing Kong studied very hard these days. He was always worried that his bad brother-in-law couldn't pass the exam. If that happened, his family would have to rely on him. When he grew up, he would take the exam for Jiao Jiao and bring him back. The day of release was April 27th. Because the Jinsher ranking was written on yellow paper, it was also called the Jin ranking. The tributary scholars couldn't wait at home for the announcement. They had to go to the palace to accept the conferment. After they were conferred, the results would be released in all the government offices and tributary courtyards in the capital. At 5 o'clock, Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang woke up. The two had a simple breakfast. Gu Jiao sent Xiao Lulang to Lu Quan's carriage. It's still early to release the results. Don't wait. Xiao Lulang said to Gu Jiao. And okay. Gu Jiao nodded. Xiao Lulang put down the curtain. He thought of something and opened the curtain again. Gu Jiao looked at him. What's wrong? Xiao Lulang wanted to say something but hesitated. Nothing. It's still early. You go and sleep for a while. Gu Jiao smiled. Okay. Xiao Lulang looked at her and didn't say anything. He put down the curtain and took the carriage to the palace. The tributary scholars had almost arrived. Feng Lin, Lin Qingye, and Du Ruhan were also there. It was unknown if Feng Lin was too nervous during the court examination. When he returned, he fell ill. Fortunately, Lin Qingye and Steward Zhou took care of him. That was why he was able to pull through. It was said that there were people who fell ill and died. Therefore, the road to the imperial examination wasn't easy. Feng Lin had just recovered, and his face was still pale. They exchanged a few words. There was a sudden commotion at the back of the crowd. Then, they saw Royal Prince and walk over with the help of several servants. Du Ruhan's eyes widened strangely. Why is his leg crippled? Xiao Lulang was also surprised. He looked at the other person. Coincidentally, Royal Prince and was also looking at him. Their eyes met. Xiao Lulang could clearly feel a trace of coldness in Royal Prince An's eyes. Xiao Lulang didn't understand and didn't take it to heart. He was just an insignificant person. What did it matter if he liked or disliked him? The group of people still entered the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the order of the quotation marks. The tables and cushions of the palace examination had already been removed. The palace hall was bright and spacious, simple and unadorned. Because of the presence of the Emperor, Grand Tutor Zhuang, Grand Secretary Yuan, and other cabinet ministers, it appeared especially solemn and respectful. The group of people kowtowed to the Emperor under the lead of the ceremonial officials. Then, Eunuch Wei presented the name list to the Emperor. The examinees were about 3 meters away from the Emperor. In reality, it was still a bit far. Some people wanted to see the Emperor's face, but before they could raise their heads, they were suppressed by the Emperor's aura. The Emperor didn't like to do things that were deliberately mysterious. He directly began to announce the top 3. Examinee Ning Ziyuan from Jade City of Guangzhou, 3rd place in the 4th month of the Zhengwu year. He is bestowed the title of Grand Scholar. Ning Ziyuan was stunned. The examinees were shocked. Was there a 3rd place candidate? Cough. The eunuch at the side gave a look to the stunned Ning Ziyuan. Ning Ziyuan quickly came back to his senses and stepped out of the line. He walked to the emperor and stopped at the designated place. He lifted his clothes and cowed out 3 times and 9 times. He said with a choked voice, "I, Ning Ziyuan, thank the emperor for his kindness. Long live the emperor." The emperor asked him to rise and continued to read. In the 4th month of the Zhenwu year, the 2nd place of the first scholar, Zhuang Yuang, is bestowed the title of scholar. Everyone looked at royal prince and was 2nd place? This was a bit unexpected. A trace of disappointment flashed through Prince An's heart. He dragged his injured leg and came to the emperor under the envious and surprised gazes of the crowd. He also cowed out 3 times and 9 times. "I, Zhuang Yuang, thank the emperor for his kindness. Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor!" The emperor glanced at Prince An and didn't say anything. Next was the top scorer. The emperor's gaze stopped for a moment on Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson, Yuan Yu. He opened the name list and said loudly, "In the 4th month of the Zhenwu year, the 1st place of the first scholar, Xiao Lulang." Digression. Grand Secretary Yuan, are you happy to be mischievous? Emperor. Oh asterisk, asterisk. Oh also, are you serious about wanting to be Liu Long's stepmother in the comment section? Underscore the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112899920. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 255. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. This year's court examination was a complete surprise. First, Prince An didn't become the top scorer. Then, Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson didn't make it into the top 3. Xiao Lulang and Ning Ziyuan, these 2 dark horses who had come from the humble class, directly stunned all the candidates present. Originally, the 3 most popular candidates were Prince An, Yuan Yu, and Wang Yuan, the scholar from Jiangnan. Everyone guessed that the 3 of them would make it into the top 1. Prince An would be the top scorer, Yuan Yu would be the 2nd, and Wang Yuan would be the 3rd. But they were all wrong. In fact, Xiao Lulang and Ning Ziyuan's results had been very stable, especially Xiao Lulang. He didn't get first place in the college examination, but he was the top scorer in all the other examinations. It was only natural that he would become the top scorer. However, he met Prince An, who was even more popular. Prince An overcame all the difficulties and didn't get 2nd place. Who would believe that he would lose to Xiao Lulang? The Zhuang family had so many highly educated people, but their children couldn't beat a poor boy from the countryside. Forget it, it wasn't their turn anyway. They just needed to watch. The top 3 in the top 1 were the top scorer, the 2nd, and the 3rd. They would be given the title of Jinshi. This was the highest honor in the court examination. There were 72 people in the top 2, and they would be given the title of Jinshi. The remaining 135 people were all Jinshi, and they would be given the title of Jinshi. Du Ruhan was 13th, 2 places higher than in the metropolitan examination. He was quite satisfied. Feng Lin was 176th in the metropolitan examination. He didn't have much confidence at that time, and he was too nervous in the court examination. He didn't perform well and expected that he wouldn't be able to make it into the top 2. As expected, he was ranked 200th. Even though he expected it, he couldn't help but be disappointed when he saw it. As for Lin Qingye, he was ranked 123rd in the metropolitan examination. This time, he was ranked 99th in the top 100. Lin Qingye was also very satisfied with his results. He wasn't a gifted examinee and was only able to get to where he was today because of his hard work and Xiao Liulang's guidance. His father's initial expectations for him was only to pass the high scholar examination. Now that he was able to pass all the way to the capital, even if he was also a grand scholar, his father would be overjoyed. He was also very happy. Finally, he didn't have to go back to inherit his family's wealth. The top 3 of each family were announced by the emperor himself, and the rest were announced by a special messenger. After the announcement, the messenger led the 3 first-class jinshi to the steps in front of the emperor's throne to receive the ranking of jinshi. Most importantly, it was the top scholar who received it. The other 2 followed behind him and bowed. The positions of the 3 were also particular. The champion was in the middle, slightly ahead of the other 2. He stood on the giant turtle head engraved in the center of the first Tao control stone, also known as the Soul Champion. The emperor stared at Xiao Liulang's face, which was almost within reach, for a long time. Xiao Liulang lowered his eyes and calmly allowed the emperor to examine him. "Your Majesty?" Eunuch Wei reminded him in a small voice. The emperor made a sound of acknowledgement and retracted his gaze. He handed the ranking to the messenger, and the messenger handed it to Xiao Liulang. After receiving the ranking of jinshi, Xiao Liulang led the jinshi to once again thank the emperor for his kindness. After the release of the results of the court examination, there was an important event, which was the parade of jinshi through the streets. All the jinshi changed into the jinshi robes issued by the court. Under the leadership of the new champion, they walked through the streets of the imperial city to receive the congratulations of the people. Among them, the champion's robes were red brocade, also known as Fei Luo brocade. It was the only pure red. The second place and third place wore black brocade robes, while the rest of the jinshi wore dark blue official robes. The emperor gave Xiao Liulang and the other 2 flower hairpins. The 3 of them wore the flower hairpins on their official hats. To be honest, Xiao Liulang and Prince An were extremely beautiful. Wearing the flower hairpins didn't make them look feminine. Instead, they looked valiant, as beautiful as peaches and plums. On the other hand, Ning Ziyuan, who came in 3rd place, was barely satisfactory. He was dark and skinny, and his looks were ordinary. The flower hairpin on his head made his dark skin look unbearable to look at. It directly interrupted the fine tradition of the 3rd-place winners being handsome men. The imperial guards led the way, and the officials from the Ministry of Rites followed closely behind. Xiao Liulang rode on his horse, leading more than 200 jinshi on the back of a beautiful horse. They were majestic, receiving the cheers and gazes of all the people. He had returned to the capital, and in this way, he was not allowed to hide or retreat. He was completely standing under the sun, standing in front of everyone. The Imperial City Guard's army had long filled the entire Imperial City, Imperial Street. Even so, they could not stop the passion of the people. Many people rushed in, but the Imperial City Guard's army blocked them with their bodies. They could stop people, but they couldn't stop the things in their hands. The people originally came for Prince An, but who would have thought that the new champion was so beautiful? Was he really human? Was he not a fairy that descended to the mortal world? Was he the world's literary star? Champion. Look at me, look at me. Champion. Look over here. A bold girl actually shouted at the top of her lungs. There were also people who shouted for Prince An, but it didn't sound like it was the case. The titles Zhuang Yuan and 3rd place were easy to shout, but the 2nd place Ning Ziyuan, why was it so strange? One girl didn't know if she was too nervous or she couldn't speak clearly, but she suddenly shouted, "Ungrateful wretch," and Prince An's face turned black. Feng Lin Qi wasn't happy at first, but in the midst of the cheers and congratulations, he suddenly felt his blood boil. This was what it meant to bring glory to the face, This was it. So what if they were both Jinshi? All the people in the capital came to celebrate for them. So any hardship was worth it. Suddenly, a sachet was thrown into Feng Lin's arms. Feng Lin was shocked at first, but then he picked up the sachet and looked in the direction it came from. Up there, a girl wearing a veil waved at him. Feng Lin's face turned red. This was the first time a girl gave him something. It was good to study, and it was good to become a Jinshi. There was only one champion, and only one princeton. Everyone couldn't snatch him, so they went to snatch other Jinshi. Feng Lin was hit by the sachet a few times, and his face was as red as a monkey's, but making the girls laugh. There were many sachets on Prince An's body. He didn't deliberately catch them, but he couldn't throw them away. Give them to me if you don't want them. Ning Ziyuan, who was riding beside him, took the sachets from his saddle. They're all high-quality thread, so they can be sold for a lot of money. Prince An Xiao Lulang received the most sachets, but he didn't take any of them and threw them away without hesitation. Moreover, he had a cold face the whole time, which really broke the hearts of the girls. Why was it so hard to hook up with a champion these days? The young ladies didn't really want to get married, but this was the tradition of the parade. It would be best if they could get a Jinshi, but if they couldn't, it would be good to have some fun. Xiao Lulang was a bit absent-minded. So many women came to see him. Why didn't she come? Before he left, he told her not to wait for the results to be released. So she really didn't come to see? At that time, he wanted to say something, but he stopped. In fact, he wanted to tell her that the new champion would lead the Jinshi on a parade, but he was too shy to say a word. That was true. She wasn't a girl from the capital, so she didn't know about the parade. That was why she didn't come. What if she came? Did he want to take a look? No. He thought no in his heart, but his hands tightened on the reins. His head slowly looked to the sides of the street. He first looked at the crowd on the street, then looked at the room above the shop. The champion is looking at me. He's looking at me. Nonsense. He's clearly looking at me. It's me, champion. With just a small glance, it caused a terrifying commotion. The Imperial Guards nearly failed to stop them, and dozens of scented sachets suddenly flew over. Xiao Liulang's body trembled, and he no longer dared to look at the crowd. She really didn't come. What a joke. What was he disappointed about? Pa! Another sachet landed on his saddle. He didn't look at it and planned to throw this sachet away, but when he picked it up, he felt that something was wrong. He paused and looked at the sachet in his hand. The stitches were very fine, but the thread was on the outside. His heart shook, and he looked up in disbelief at a tea house on the right. He suddenly tightened the reins and stopped the horse. No grand scholar could walk in front of the new champion. When he stopped, all the grand scholars behind him had to stop as well. The Imperial Guards that were responsible for escorting them also had to stop. The entire group and the entire street stopped for one person. Xiao Lulang held the sachet in his hand and looked at the young girl in the tea house. The young girl was wearing a blue dress and had a slender figure. Her eyebrows were picturesque, and the red birthmark on the left side of her face was like the clouds in the sky. It was also like a begonia flower falling in the wind. It was beautiful to the heart. Gu Jiao leaned against the window and looked at him with her chin in her hand. Her lips were slightly curved. Xiao Liulang's mood suddenly became better. The coldness in his eyes disappeared, and he also smiled. His serious face was already charming to death. When he revealed a smile, it was like ice and snow flowers blooming, all things coming back to life, and the morning light coming. This moment of amazement was hard to describe. Then everyone saw Xiao Lulang hang the only sachet he received today on his waist. The girls were jealous to death. Didn't the new champion not accept sachets? Why did you make an exception? Why didn't you reject it? Also, why are you smiling? You're not allowed to smile. Just when the girls thought that this was enough to make them despair, something even more despairing happened. The new champion actually took off the royal flower hairpin. Everyone was stunned. It can't be? The champion wasn't going to give her the flower hairpin? No. They wouldn't allow it. Digression, at such a festive moment, Can I ask for a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112897185. HTML Genius memorized the website address www.zhbqg.com. Bikuga mobile reading website zhbqg.com. Chapter 256. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In Zhao country, there was a tradition of the top scholar receiving a flower hairpin. At first, it was just the top scholar receiving a flower hairpin, but it slowly evolved into the 3-tripod hairpin. These hairpins were bestowed by the emperor and had a very special meaning. Every daughter of Zhao country was proud to receive a 3-tripod hairpin. That's right, the 3-tripod hairpin was not given to men. But generally, it was not given to women casually. First, it was bestowed by the emperor, and everyone cherished it. Second, they were afraid of offending someone by favoring one and discriminating against another. Such a thing happened in the previous dynasty. A top scholar gave his flower hairpin to a famous brothel prostitute. As a result, he angered the daughter of an aristocratic family who secretly had feelings for him. That daughter's father was a powerful official in the court. The result was obvious. The top scholar's career was not smooth for many years. The second and third place of the imperial examination all entered the cabinet. Only he was sent to a small county to be the county magistrate. Of course, this was an exception. But no matter what, the flower hairpin was very rare. There were 2 ways to get a flower hairpin. One was to give it to the top scholar willingly. The other was to challenge the top scholar to a competition. If you won, you could win the other person's flower hairpin. In the past, the crown princess used this method to win 2 flower hairpins from the top scholar and the second place of the imperial examination. It was a popular story in Zhao country. If no one challenged Xiao Lulang, then Xiao Lulang could give the flower hairpin to anyone he wanted. But if someone challenged him, he had to accept the challenge and win. Only then could he give the flower hairpin to the person he wanted to give it to. If he didn't want to accept the challenge, it was fine. But he couldn't give the flower hairpin away. This was the rule. He took out the flower hairpin. It seemed that he was going to give it away. This was something that made people jealous. In the tea house next to Gu Jiao's, it was also on the 2nd floor. The window was open, and a girl in purple with a veil on her face was leaning against the window. Judging from her attire, she was either rich or noble. Her temperament was also not bad. There was also a maid beside her. She should be the daughter of an aristocratic family. She didn't even look at Gu Jiao next door. She just raised her chin and raised her eyebrows. Her gaze fell on the handsome new top scholar and said, "My daughter has a couplet that she would like to consult with the top scholar." I wonder if the top scholar would do me the honor? This meant that he wanted to challenge the top scorer. Every year, when the Zhuangyuan paraded through the streets, there would be daughters challenging the top 3. However, not many people actually accepted the challenge, and even fewer lost after accepting it. Up until now, only the crown princess had successfully won 2 flower hairpins. This girl is really bold. Who is she? Everyone couldn't help but look at the purple-clothed girl. The purple-clothed girl didn't seem to mind being stared at. She smiled and arrogantly and innocently said, "What? Is the new top scholar afraid that he won't be able to match a girl's couplet? It's fine if you don't get it right, but you won't be able to give it away." Everyone finally understood. This lady couldn't have it herself, and she didn't want anyone else to have it. All right, even though it sounded a little hateful, they were a little happy. That's right, the top scholar. You can only keep your hairpin for yourself. You're not allowed to give it to other women. Xiao Lulang nodded slightly at Gu Jiao, and then looked at the young girl from afar. His eyes regained their coldness. Miss, please enlighten me. The purple-clothed girl said proudly, River Gazing Tower, River Gazing Tower, River Gazing Tower, River Gazing Tower, River Gazing Tower for eternity. River Gazing Tower for eternity. River Gazing Tower for eternity. Everyone was astonished. This young lady had such literary talent. Xiao Lulang didn't even think about it as he said indifferently, Moon imprinted well, moon imprinted shadow, moon imprinted well, moon imprinted shadow in moon imprinted well, moon imprinted well for 10,000 years, moon imprinted shadow for 10,000 years. Everyone clapped and cheered. Great. She was indeed worthy of being the new top scorer. This pair was amazing. The purple-clothed girl choked. She didn't expect the other party to match her so quickly. She wasn't convinced and threw out another couplet. Fog locks up the mountain. Fog locks up the mountain. Xiao Lulang, the sky connects the water. The tail water connects the sky. The purple-clothed girl. The moon shines on the screen window. All the pavilions are bright. Zhuge Liang, courtesy named Kongming. Xiao Lulang, snow flies on the plum mountain. Everywhere is fragrant mountain by Letian. Bai Jui, courtesy name Letian. Nickname Fragrant Mountain. The purple-clothed girl anxiously scratched her head. She wanted to continue, but Xiao Lulang said indifferently, Miss, you've used up all your questions. She was the first person to challenge, so she could ask 3 questions. The challengers, after her, could only ask 1 question each. This was also the rule. She was furious. She turned around and said to the other young Taoist nun in the room, Elder sister, you do it. The young Taoist nun took a sip of tea and said leisurely, Don't make a fool of yourself. Come back. If the new top scholar can be stumped by a few couplets, then he doesn't deserve to be the top scholar. But the purple-clothed girl stomped her feet and sat back down on her chair with a cold snort. The purple-clothed girl took the lead. After that, a few bold daughters challenged the new top scholar, but without exception, they were all defeated. Then came a ruthless test. She didn't test him on couplets or poems. Instead, she made Xiao Lulang recite a passage from Left Turn backwards. She used a book to test Xiao Lulang. Left Turn had more than 90,000 words. How proficient did he have to be able to recite it from where she pointed and backwards? This was too cruel. The crowd was originally gloating, but now they sympathized with the new top scholar. The official from the Ministry of Rights broke out in cold sweat. He knew that there should be rules in the competition. For example, only couplets or poems could be recited. There shouldn't be such a deviant question. Wasn't this just embarrassing? Only those who had studied would understand how difficult this question was. However, the common people didn't understand. The common people would only think, Aren't you the new top scholar? How come you can't even recite a book? The daughter stood on the second floor and said with a smile, You can't answer it, right? Top scholar, your flower hairpin is mine. Xiao Lulang calmly said, White feather, analyzed by Su Shengzi, the king's envoy, Chu Dong. The daughter was stunned. She stared at the book in her hand. He actually didn't make a single mistake. Thank you for letting me win. Xiao Lulang politely and distantly looked away. Is there anything else? He asked. The scene was silent. Everyone was shocked by his recitation of Left Turn. For a moment, no one dared to come forward and embarrass themselves. Xiao Liulang's eyes fell on Gu Jiao's face. His eyes had a temperature that made people jealous. Miss, please give me your question. Ah, it was her turn? Gu Jiao was stunned. Everyone was reciting poems, but she didn't know how to recite poems. Actually, she did. It was just that she was so focused on looking at the handsome man that her mind was blank. Gu Jiao blinked her eyes and rolled her eyes. White sun against the mountain. Everyone staggered. No, miss, what kind of question did you set? Even a 3-year-old child could do it. The new top scorer was a godly person who could recite left turn backwards. Xiao Lulang made an "oh" sound and looked at her steadily. He said in all seriousness, "This humble one doesn't know how to. This humble one loses." Everyone. Are you kidding me, the new top scorer? You can't even the crowd didn't know what to say. At this moment, another young lady stepped forward and said something that most of the people present couldn't understand. Xiao Lulang looked at her coldly and said something that most people couldn't understand. The purple-clothed girl was confused. Sister? What were they talking about? The young Taoist nun raised her eyebrows and said, "That young lady just now said to the new top scorer in the language of the state of Chun, 'White sun against the mountain.'" Ah! The purple-clothed girl was shocked. The young Taoist nun said slowly, "Then the new top scorer used the languages of the state of Chun, the state of Liang, the state of Zhao, the state of Jin, and the state of Yan." Oh, right, the next sentence, "The yellow river flows into the sea." Did that girl really think that the new top scorer couldn't match this sentence? Did she think that she could pick up the scraps? Did she think that she was better than the girl in green? Did she think that the new top scorer would look at her differently? In the end, she was slapped in the face. What others asked, he would answer. What you asked, he wouldn't answer. Winning against everyone in the world, only to lose to you. Most people didn't know what had happened. They just looked at the girl who was speaking in the language of birds, and her face suddenly turned the color of pig liver. The Taoist nun's words were spread by the maidservants. Then, everyone knew what was going on. In order to watch the lawsuit parade, they didn't even eat breakfast. Now, they were all full, and their teeth were about to fall out. In the end, Gu Jiao received the new top scorer's hairpin. She looked at the hairpin in her hand and couldn't bear to put it down. It was so beautiful. Xiao Lulang looked at her from afar. There was a gentleness in his eyes that he didn't even notice. Suddenly, a little head popped out from under Gu Jiao's arm. Flower? Jiao Jiao, I want to wear it. Little Jing Kong said as he patted his little bald head with his 2 little hands. The daughters of wealthy families all reached out their hands. Little brother, you don't have hair. You should give it to your sisters. Their hair is so thick. Little Jing Kong snorted and turned his face away. No, he wanted to wear it himself. Gu Jiao made a headband for little Jing Kong with a veil and put the flower into the headband. Little Jing Kong wore a big red flower and shook his little bald head happily. Then, the new top scorer's face darkened. Gu Jiao's goal was to get 3 hairpins. She already had the top scorer's hairpin. Next was the top scorer's hairpin and the top scorer's hairpin. Facing Royal Princeton, she was very calm. She didn't feel like she was in a mess at all. She directly threw an arithmetic question. Royal Prince was speechless. Royal Prince had planned to lose to her on purpose like Xiao Lulang did from the beginning. However, he didn't expect her to give him such a difficult question. Who taught her? Xiao Lulang? Why was she so merciful to Xiao Lulang and so serious when it came to him? Royal Prince took a deep breath and said, "I admit defeat." Xiao Lulang narrowed his eyes and watched Royal Prince unthrow the hairpin to Gu Jiao. His eyes were frighteningly cold. But soon, Gu Jiao set her eyes on Ning Ziyuan, who came in third. Because of Ning Ziyuan's appearance, no one had challenged him yet. Therefore, he could choose to give the hairpin to Gu Jiao. However, Ning Ziyuan didn't want to give it to her. He had made up his mind. If anyone challenged him, he would reject them all and keep the hairpin for himself. Seeing that Gu Jiao wanted Ning Ziyuan's hairpin, Xiao Lulang wasn't angry anymore. Ning Ziyuan clutched his hairpin tightly. He wasn't going to give it to her. He wanted to keep it as a family heirloom and pass it down to his descendants. Give the hairpin to her, the new top scorer threatened. No, Ning Ziyuan refused. There will be serious consequences if you don't give it to her. The new top scorer continued to threaten. I'm the top scorer. I'll make things difficult for you. Ning Ziyuan was speechless. The top scorer was qualified to enter the Hanlin Academy directly. The top scorer's position was higher than the top scorer's position. Therefore, The top scorer could make things difficult for the top scorer. In ancient times, Go Jian, the king of Yu, endured hardships. Today, Ning Ziyuan gave the hairpin to her with tears in his eyes. Ning Ziyuan swallowed his humiliation and gave the hairpin away. Oh, the family heirloom was gone. Gu Jiao received 3 hairpins and became the first woman to collect 3 hairpins since the founding of the Zhao kingdom. She was in the limelight for a while, and even the crown princess paled in comparison. Xiao Lulang was the new top scorer. He was the most popular man today, and Gu Jiao was undoubtedly the most popular woman today. Needless to say, there was a lot of heated discussion among the people. The parade lasted for nearly 2 hours. Then, the new top scorer led them through Chang, an avenue, and arrived at the imperial palace. He was enthroned and had lunch before going home. Lulang, I feel like this is unreal. In the main hall of the imperial palace, Feng Lin said to Xiao Lulang excitedly, I've seen so many people looking at me along the way. I've never been so popular in my life. His glory was not worth mentioning compared to the new top scorer, but he had never thought of comparing himself with Xiao Lulang. The disappointment of being the same Jinsher had long disappeared in the process of riding a horse and parading through the streets. He was full of enthusiasm and only wanted to do his best to serve the imperial court. Digression note: the couplets in this article are from the internet. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112871261. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 257. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. In fact, Xiao Lulang also had a feeling that it was as if a lifetime had passed and that it was not real. He had been to the palace so many times, but this was the first time he came out from the main gate of the Meridian Gate. This gate was only opened for the master of the palace. However, Shi Yi, who was the top scholar, the second scholar, and the third scholar, was qualified to use it once. He thought he didn't care. The moment he came out, he felt different. However, he wasn't as excited as Feng Lin. He was calmer. He said to Feng Lin, there will be many opportunities to serve the court. Feng Lin whispered, but I don't want to go back to the county to get an official position. I want to stay in the Hanlin Academy. I envy you for being able to enter the Hanlin Academy. The top scholar wasn't the highest rank of scholar. The Hanlin Academy was. There's a saying, if you're not a Jinsher, you can't enter Hanlin, and if you're not a Hanlin, you can't enter the cabinet. Since ancient times, Hanlin Academy has been known as the place of the heir apparent. Be it Grand Tutor Zhuang, Grand Secretary Yuan, or even the old Chancellor, they were all from Hanlin Academy. Entering the Hanlin Academy didn't guarantee success. However, if you didn't enter, you wouldn't have much hope as a civil official. Xiao Lulang said, the top 2 scholars and top 3 scholars will take the imperial exam next month. As long as you pass the exam, you can stay in the capital. After 3 years, the school will be closed. Those with good results can also enter the Hanlin Academy. Feng Lin could only look forward to it. After Gu Jiao saw her husband leave, she didn't go to Lu Yixing immediately because she didn't know where Lu Yixing lived. She could only wait for Lu Yixing to come to her. However, she didn't go back to the clinic. She went to the Qingfeng gang. The Qingfeng gang lost a lot of money this time. Many people bet on Prince and Yuan Yu, but not many bet on Xiao Lulang. Gu Jiao's 5,000 taels suddenly became 25,000 taels. This was because there were more than 10 people who took risks. Otherwise, the odds would be higher. Furthermore, those who had bet on Zhuang Yueshi and Gu Jinyu winning the flower hairpin had lost everything. The one with the highest odds was Gu Jiao. On the lonely hairpin list, only 2 people had bet on her. One was Zhuang Mengdai, and the other was Prince and Royal Prince, and earned a fortune. But he wasn't happy at all. Zhuang Mengdai was also not happy. If she had known that this girl would win the flower hairpin, she would not have bet a single copper coin. She would have bet all her assets. Gu Jiao was very happy. The Cool Breeze gang gave her cash. She put the shiny silver in a sack and went back happily. Jadewater Alley had also received the good news of Xiao Lulang becoming the top scholar. The number of people who came to congratulate him was almost enough to break the doorstep. Aya, Brother Hua, how did you two raise your child? Why was Lulang so powerful? It's harder for my son to study than to take his life. Uncle Zhao thought of his youngest son, who only knew how to fool around all day. He really had given birth to this son for nothing. Don't say that. Brother Yang is very good. The old chancellor comforted Uncle Zhao. He even forgot to apologize to the former emperor in his heart. He and the Empress Dowager were not husband and wife. They had a pure monarch and vassal relationship. The old madam was very happy today. She deliberately went easy on the game so that the neighbors would lose less money. Madame Yao was also very happy. She personally cooked the desserts. After she became pregnant, she rarely cooked. Today, she was so excited that Nanny Fong couldn't stop her. Nanny Fong had to help her. Madame Yao made walnut cakes. The children didn't like to eat them, but she found that Xiao Lulang liked them very much. She kneaded the dough and said, "At first I saw that he was good to Jiao Jiao and was hardworking and willing to endure hardships. However, I never expected that he would become the top scholar. Now Jiao Jiao is the top scholar's wife. Isn't that so?" Nanny Fong added a handful of firewood to the stove with a smile. To be honest, Nanny Fong didn't think highly of the son-in-law at first. Like Marquis Gu, she felt that the son-in-law wasn't good enough for eldest Mississippi. Although eldest Miss grew up in the countryside, she was still the descendant of the Marquis's household. What did the son-in-law have? He didn't have a good family background and was still a little cripple. Although all things were inferior, only studying was good. However, there was a saying that scholars were useless. Nanny Fong was always worried that this son-in-law would achieve nothing in the end, and that eldest Miss would be wronged by him. Fortunately, although she was unhappy, she didn't show it on her face. Otherwise, if she offended the top scholar's son-in-law, her life would be awkward. Gu Jiaojiao and little Jing Kong arrived home first. Everyone didn't know what to say when they saw the money she brought back with a sack. Xiao Lulang, on the other hand, was only sent back when the sky turned dark. It wasn't Feng Lin or Lin Qingye. It was Ning Ziyuan, who was cheated by Xiao Lulang today. Today was a big day for all the scholars, so they should drink a few cups. Xiao Lulang was the new top scholar, so he should drink a lot. Xiao Lulang had never drunk before, so he couldn't hold his liquor well. However, the few cups of wine at the lunch banquet weren't enough to get him drunk. The problem was that after the banquet, some of them went to other places in 2s and 3s. It was a bit difficult to talk about what happened. Xiao Lulang didn't want to stay there and insisted on going home. Everyone was unhappy and asked him to punish himself by drinking 3 cups before letting him go. This guy really dared to drink. After drinking, he passed out. Ning Ziyuan had a family, and he didn't like that kind of occasion, so he suggested to send the new top scholar back. "It's to the left, right? Is it that alley?" Ning Ziyuan asked Xiao Lulang in the carriage. Xiao Lulang was so drunk that he ignored him. Ning Ziyuan shook his head and asked the coachman to go forward. Perhaps he was in a hurry, so he almost bumped into someone when he reached the entrance of the alley. It was 2 women, one in a Taoist robe and the other in purple. I'm sorry. The coachman hurriedly apologized. Ning Ziyuan also lifted the curtain and got out of the carriage. He bowed to the two and apologized. Are you all right, ladies? I'm sorry, I was in a hurry and bumped into you. Ning Ziyuan was still wearing the third-place official's robe. The girl in purple recognized him at a glance. She smiled and whispered in the Taoist nun's ear, Sister, it's that black third-place official. Ning Ziyuan, am I black? Then his face darkened even more. The Taoist nun gave the girl in purple a warning look. The girl in purple stuck out her tongue. The Taoist nun looked away and bowed slightly to Ning Ziyuan. It's okay, goodbye. Then she took her sister's hand and walked away. When the two of them passed by the carriage, the night wind suddenly blew the curtain of the carriage open, revealing a young man who was half leaning against the carriage wall and resting with his eyes closed. The moonlight flowed and fell on his red, embroidered top scholar's robe, reflecting a faint glow. His eyes were closed, and his facial features were as exquisite as jade. There was a hint of drunkenness, and he was so handsome that it was suffocating. The Taoist nun grew up in a Taoist temple and thought that she had cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the human world. But at this moment, she had to admit that this young man was really tempting. Of course, she was just looking at him. She didn't forget that this young man was taken. She didn't care about other people's things. When the two of them were far away, the girl in purple suddenly came back to her senses. She touched her hot cheeks and said, Sister, did you see that just now? The one in the carriage is the new top scholar. Oh my God. He's two. Two what? The girl in purple suddenly couldn't find the words to describe it. Her heart was pounding. She already thought that he was handsome when she saw him from afar during the day. But when she saw him from such a close distance, she realized that he was more than handsome. She was simply mesmerizing. She shook the Taoist nun's hand excitedly. Sister, you don't have a chance. The Taoist nun poured cold water on her. The girl in purple's heart broke. Wah, the two of them got into their own carriages. Ning Ziyuan also helped the drunk Xiao Lulang out of the carriage. What they didn't notice was that there was another carriage parked at the other end of the alley. The crowned princess was sitting in the carriage. She was passing by and accidentally saw the top scholar of the imperial court get off the carriage to apologize to a daughter of the Yuan family and a Taoist nun. She knew who the top 3 were. However, she didn't go see the top scholar parade on horseback, so she didn't know Ning Ziyuan. She recognized him only because of his official robes. There was nothing to see about an ordinary-looking top scholar. She was about to leave when Ning Ziyuan helped a young man out of the carriage. That was the new top scholar, which was him. A young and tender face involuntarily flashed across the crown princess' mind. The 13 or 14-year-old young duke was still a young man who had just lost his childishness. He was very likable, but not in the way that men and women liked each other. The young man in front of her had a face that was almost identical to his, but seemed to be completely different. He was taller, and his facial features had matured. He had the air of a young man and also the strength of a man. He was beginning to exude the charm of a man. Knock, knock, knock. Ning Ziyuan knocked on the door of a family's courtyard. With a creak, the door was opened. Who are you looking for? Excuse me, is this Xiao Yolang's house? Ning Ziyuan asked. Isn't this Lu Lang? Auntie Lu recognized Xiao Lulang and hurriedly ran out. She ran forward a few houses and said, Jiao, Lulang is back. Then, the crowned princess saw a girl in green walk out of the house. She quickly walked up to Ning Ziyuan and Xiao Lulang and took Xiao Lulang from Ning Ziyuan's hands. Xiao Lulang was a bit drunk. The moment the girl put her arm around his waist, he opened his eyes warily. It's me, Gu Jiao said. Jiao. I'm here. Oh. Xiao Lulang gave up resisting and was helped back to the courtyard by Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao should have thanked Ning Ziyuan, but the crown princess didn't notice. Her gaze had been fixed on Gu Jiao's arm that was wrapped around Xiao Yolang's waist. She suddenly felt a bit irritated. Crown Princess? The female official to the side cautiously called out to her. Only then did the Crown Princess notice that she had torn her handkerchief. She loosened her grip and said with a smile, "My stomach felt a bit uncomfortable just now. Let's go back to the palace." The female official quickly said, "This servant will quickly call an imperial physician for you." The Crown Princess nodded. She took one last look at the two people holding each other in the night. He wasn't Ahung, he wasn't. Ahung wouldn't fall in love with another woman, nor would he let another woman get close to him. Never. Gu Jiao helped him into the courtyard. Xiao Lulang was this drunk. Naturally, he couldn't sleep in the same room as little Jing Kong. If something happened during the night, little Jing Kong would be scared, and he wouldn't be able to take care of him. Gu Jiao helped Xiao Lulang back to her room. She helped Xiao Lulang lie on her bed and took off his official hat. It was already not cold at the end of April. The thick-top scholar's robes felt heavy and stuffy on his body. Xiao Lulang was sweating. Gu Jiao went to fetch some water and planned to wipe him down. Just as she sat down, she heard him mutter, "Jiao Jiao, I'm hot." Normally, his words were cold and clear. Now that he was drunk, he suddenly had a bit of a seductive charm. Speaking of which, when they first arrived here, his voice was still going through puberty. It didn't sound bad, but it wasn't too pleasant either. Later on, his voice gradually matured. It was just that Gu Jiao was with him every day, so she didn't notice the change. Until that voice, just now. Gu Jiao was startled, and her ears went limp. Gu Jiao put down the basin of water and unbuttoned his clothes. Just as she undid his collar, his slender neck was revealed. The delicate Adam's apple on his neck moved. It was a bit seductive. Gu Jiao used her strong willpower to unbutton his clothes and remove his thick official's robes. Then Gu Jiao began to wipe his face. He drank wine, and his cheeks were slightly red. His lips were very moist, and there was a glint of water from the wine. Perhaps he was woken up by the wipe as he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was a bit hazy, and it was extremely seductive. "Gu Jiao, I didn't drool." "No, no, no." Xiao Lulang asked drunkenly, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Gu Jiao said honestly, "You look good." He smiled gently. "Which part of me looked good?" "You look good everywhere." His eyebrows were good, his eyes were good, and his nose was good. Gu Jiao glanced at his red lips and silently added in her heart, "His lips are good too, the best." He laid on the bed and looked at her, revealing a hazy and seductive gaze that would never appear on a normal day. He curved his lips. "Just looking? Huh." Gu Jiao was stunned. In the next second, he raised his slender arm, and his jade-like hand clasped the back of Gu Jiao's head. With just the right amount of force, he pulled her towards him. Digression, don't ask. If you ask, it's a kiss. Where's the screeching groundhog? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_89642826/112868593. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 258. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao was stunned by this sudden action, but she didn't resist. The moment his hot palm clasped the back of her head, she seemed to be unable to move. She opened her eyes wide and let him press her down. In her 2 lives, she had never been so intimate with anyone, and no one had ever been so presumptuous in front of her. Her code name was Shadow, and she was a killing machine in the organization. She liked to collect handsome men, but she had never been addicted to them. Because her godfather said that men were poison, bitter, and astringent, and it was good to keep them in a bottle and look at them. But tonight, she tasted this poison. It was soft and moist, with a hint of flower-brewed wine fragrance and a sweetness that was unique to him. It was not bitter at all. Her godfather was lying. Men were clearly delicious. Oh no, he was very delicious. The night was gentle, and the moonlight was soft. Gu Jiao pressed down on his body, one hand holding her chin, and looked at him without blinking. Her mind was thinking about the taste just now, and the corners of her mouth were slightly curved. Xiao Lulang fell asleep, his chest gently rising and falling, and his even breathing came from his nose. The young man's body was full of vitality, and the sun was like fire, burning the whole room as if it had been rolled by a heat wave. Was he asleep? Then he couldn't hear anything she said. Gu Jiao's eyes darted around. She crouched down and hugged his hand with one of her small arms. She smiled evilly in his ear and said bewitchingly, "Brothers, waste is not a waste. It's the scimitar of Killer San Lang." Xiao Liulang's breathing was even. Gu Jiao glanced at his long and slender legs again and naughtily climbed up with 2 fingers. She walked a few times and continued to whisper in his ear, "Brothers' legs are not legs. They are the spring water of the Seine River." After saying this, she buried her head in the blanket. Xiao Lulang slept soundly. Gu Jiao's courage grew. She crawled out of the quilt and whispered in his ear, "You're really good at eating." Then she laid down beside him, closed her eyes, and fell asleep. While she was half awake, a warm breath came close to her, and her lips were lightly pressed again. Oh, it must be because it was so delicious that she was dreaming. What Gu Jiao didn't know was that she really had a dream after she fell asleep. She dreamed of Xiao Lulang again. This time it was not some unspeakable scene, but Xiao Lulang going to the palace to participate in the Deer Cry Banquet. The Deer Cry Banquet was a banquet that the emperor held for the grand scholars on the second day of the release of the results. One reason was to celebrate the students of the Zhao kingdom becoming grand scholars. The other reason was to display the emperor's courtesy to the scholars. At the same time, it was to establish a relationship with the grand scholars. No matter who the grand scholars were before, after the Deer Cry Banquet, they would all be the emperor's disciples. Xiao Lulang, as a poor student, had become the Zhuang Yuan, attracting the jealousy of many people. As the saying goes, when a person becomes famous, there are many problems. The number of people who slandered him also increased. In the first half of the dream, Xiao Lulang was being mocked and ridiculed by some people. Xiao Lulang himself didn't care about it, so strictly speaking, it wasn't much of a blow. But very quickly, Xiao Lulang was summoned by the crown prince. On the way to the eastern palace, a white cat suddenly fell from a tree and coincidentally landed on Xiao Liulang's shoulder. It was also in the dream that Gu Jiao found out that Xiao Lulang was afraid of cats. Xiao Lulang instinctively flung the cat away. The cat was thrown to the ground. It whimpered and then scurried away in fright. Coincidentally, at this time, Ning Wangfei was passing by. The frightened cat bumped into Ning Wangfei's stomach and knocked her down. Ning Wangfei was 3 months pregnant. Her pregnancy wasn't good. With this fall, the child was gone. The white cat was frightened because of Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang couldn't avoid being accused of murdering the imperial grandson. He had only been the Zhuang Yuan for a day when the emperor took away his title and sent him to the Zhao prison. This kind of situation was the most helpless because even the emperor knew that Xiao Lulang didn't do it on purpose. But so what if he didn't do it on purpose? Wasn't killing by mistake considered killing? The rules of the palace were like this. He could only blame himself for being unlucky. Gu Jiao held her breath during this dream. It was rare that she wasn't woken up by the biological clock in her body. When she opened her eyes, it was already dawn. Xiao Lulang was no longer in the room. The embroidered Zhuang Yuan robe on the chair showed that he had indeed slept here last night. Gu Jiao dressed neatly and went to the ancient well to get water to wash up. The water had already been prepared. It was her copper basin. Her towel was placed on the edge of the basin. The water was slightly steaming, as if it had just been poured. Senior servant Fong came over with a dustpan of dried chili. She looked back at the kitchen and smiled at Gu Jiao. The son-in-law prepared it. When he heard the movements in your room, he immediately prepared the hot water. Gu Jiao, husband is so good. Xiao Lulang was currently helping Madame Yao in the kitchen. Yesterday, Madame Yao made Xiao Liulang's favorite peach pastry. Unfortunately, Xiao Lulang didn't get to eat it when he came back late, so she got up this morning to make it for him. Xiao Lulang came over to help, but Madame Yao didn't let him. How could Zhuang Yuan go to the kitchen? However, since Madame Yao didn't let Xiao Lulang do this, Xiao Lulang went to do other things, such as watering the vegetable field and cleaning the chicken coop. In short, he wasn't idle. She didn't know what to do with Xiao Lulang. Soon, the family members got up one after another. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun congratulated their brother-in-law. Little Jing Kong was rarely picky. After all, that flower was quite beautiful. Among the 3 flower hairpins, the Zhuang Yuan's flower hairpin was the most complicated, the best quality, and also the most beautiful. The Zhuang Yuan would have a beautiful flower hairpin. Little Jing Kong equated the two in his heart. He was even more determined that he must be the Zhuang Yuan in the future. At this moment, no one knew that the future Six Nations divine general had set himself up as the Zhuang Yuan just for a flower hairpin. Old Madame Fu gave Xiao Lulang a red packet, and also gave Gu Jiao a red packet. Old Madame Fu's principle of giving out red packets was that if Lu Lang had it, Jiao Jiao would also have it. If Lu Lang didn't have it, Jiao Jiao would still have it. The family sat at the dining table and ate breakfast. Xiao Lulang sat opposite Gu Jiao. The interaction between the two was no different from usual, especially Xiao Lulang. He looked serious and calm, as if he didn't remember what happened when he was drunk. Little Jing Kong was eating the buns in his bowl. Suddenly, he tilted his head and said, "Jiao Jiao, your and brother-in-law's lips are so red. What did you eat?" Xiao Lulang didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao didn't know what to say. After breakfast, Xiao Lulang sent little Jing Kong to school. In the morning, he went to the government office to register his household registration. After becoming the Zhuang Yuan, his household registration would be transferred to the Hanlin Academy. From now on, he also had a household registration in the capital. It was said that this was the treatment of the top 3. At noon, the old chancellor would take him out to meet a friend. They wouldn't come back in the afternoon. They would go directly to the deer banquet. Gu Jiao asked about his schedule and didn't say anything. She watched him go out and turned to the medical center. Xiao Lulang registered his household registration and met an elder in the court. He didn't enter the palace until the afternoon. It was still early, but many Jinsher had come to the Hall of Supreme Harmony. They were talking with each other. Some of them might become colleagues in the future. It was always right to establish a good relationship with them in advance. Fong Lin and the other 2 didn't leave early last night. They watched a lot of singing and dancing to their heart's content, satisfying the craving of being a romantic scholar. Today, the 3 of them woke up late, but they still arrived earlier than Xiao Lulang. Lulang. Fong Lin was about to step into the Hall of Supreme Harmony when he saw Xiao Lulang from the corner of his eyes. Among the 3 of them, Fong Lin had known Xiao Lulang for the longest time. He owed Xiao Lulang the most and also spent the most time with Xiao Lulang. Therefore, he was always the first to notice Xiao Lulang. Lulang. Lin Qingye also turned into a little fan and greeted him. Only Du Ruhan curled her lips and snorted. "You drank too much yesterday. Are you okay?" Fong Lin asked with concern. Then he felt ashamed. "I should have sent you back yesterday." "Cough, I'm okay," Xiao Lulang said seriously. Du Ruhan snorted. "Didn't I say he was okay? He has a wife. When he goes back, his wife and children will warm his bed. Why do you need to worry?" Xiao Liulang's expression changed slightly. He cleared his throat and said, "Let's go in." The four of them entered the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Yesterday, Xiao Lulang left early, which made some people unhappy. This was the way of the world. If you were too clean, you would make others seem dirty. What's so great about him? Why didn't he think about how he became the top scholar? Lower your voice. Be careful not to let others hear you. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, a few grand scholars were talking with their backs to the door. The one who snorted was called Wang Yuan. He came from a noble family in Jiangnan. Like Lin Qingye, he was a concubine's son. However, he was more famous and promising than Lin Qingye. He had entered the top 10 in the spring examination. Concubine Shu had bet on him to be the Tanhua, but he didn't receive the emperor's favor. The paper that entered the top 20 but was kicked out by the emperor was his. In the end, he was ranked 75th, at the bottom of the second rank. Hearing the grand scholars around him trying to persuade him, he didn't listen. Instead, he said with disdain, "Why are you afraid of being heard? I didn't say anything wrong. Only he can do it, and no one can talk about it? Isn't it because he looks like Marquis Xuanping's youngest son that he was favored by Marquis Xianping? He really thinks he's the Marquis' son." In the end, they were in the imperial palace. Wang Yuan didn't dare to be too explicit. Otherwise, he would be openly questioning the emperor's unfairness. However, just because he didn't say it here didn't mean he didn't say it elsewhere. In fact, right after Xiao Lulang and Ning Ziyuan left last night, rumors about him spread like wildfire in the brothel. Thus, there's a reasonable explanation for Marquis Xianping coming to fix Xiao Yulang's clothes on the day of the court examination. Not only that, Xiao Yulang's past results were all dug up. He entered Qinxiang Academy with the lowest score. After that, he was always at the bottom. Just like that, he took first place in the county examination a few months later. Can you believe it? Why is that? Why else? The dean of Qinxiang Academy is the old chancellor's eldest disciple and the marquis's eldest martial brother. He looks like the marquis, so Dean Li took care of him and bribed the county magistrate to let him take first place. Then what about the prefectural examination? Needless to say, the chief examiner of the prefectural examination is Provincial Governor Zhuang. You've all heard of him, right? He used to be the crown princess's teacher. The marquis and the crown princess grew up together. He also attended Provincial Governor Zhuang's classes, so he can be considered half a student of Provincial Governor Zhuang. Do you think Provincial Governor Zhuang won't remember the marquis when he sees this face? Then why didn't he take first place in the college examination? Because the first place in the college examination is the Luo family's relative, He Jinghong. Who dares to touch him? This was simply illogical. Not to mention that Xiao Lulang was first place in the college examination. It was He Jinghong who switched Xiao Liulang's examination papers. Even if Xiao Lulang really did use unscrupulous means to get first place, why did he lose to He Jinghong in the college examination and then win against He Jinghong in the provincial examination? If he was afraid of a small college examination, why wasn't he afraid of a big provincial examination? This conversation was spread last night. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye drank too much and didn't remember clearly, but now that they were mocked by Wang Yuan, they remembered everything. The two were furious and wanted to rush up to argue with Wang Yuan, but were stopped by Xiao Lulang. Don't cause trouble in the imperial palace. Feng Lin gritted his teeth. But Du Ruhan looked at Xiao Lulang and said to Feng Lin and Lin Qingye, "He's not angry himself. So why are you angry? Besides, their mouths are on their bodies. Can you sew their mouths shut?" How many people's positions had been affected by a poor student becoming the top scholar? Slander and discrediting were only the most insignificant injuries. The real ostracization had yet to come. The Dear Cry banquet was about to begin. Everyone found their seats and sat down. There were no clear rules regarding the order of the seats, but everyone agreed to sit according to their results. For example, the lower left seats were for the top scholar, second place, and third place. The lower right seats were for the first place in the second place, and the first place in the third place. However, after Prince An walked into the hall with injured steps, he didn't sit next to Xiao Lulang. Instead, he walked to the opposite side and sat in the seat that originally belonged to Jair. With such a clear distinction, the only thing missing was the words, "I am the top scholar, and I are each doing our own thing," written on their faces. He didn't sit next to Xiao Lulang, and no one dared to sit. The seat next to Xiao Lulang was empty. The third place was also empty. Ning Ziyuan hadn't arrived yet. Ning Ziyuan came late. He found that the second place and third place were empty. He glanced at Commandery Princeton, who was already sitting across from him. He didn't say anything and silently sat beside Xiao Lulang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/112844999. HTML Genius. Remember the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 259. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. They're all the novels that you can't find online. Everyone was surprised to see him sit next to Xiao Lulang instead of his own seat. However, on second thought, he left early last night and sat late today. He probably didn't hear the rumors about Xiao Lulang. He also came from a poor family and didn't know the rules of the seats. He probably thought that the top scholar and the second scholar sat on opposite sides. This was the tragedy of poor students. They couldn't see the situation clearly and didn't understand the rules. They didn't know when they offended someone. However, everyone hated Xiao Lulang the most. They didn't hate Ning Ziyuan that much. Ning Ziyuan had neither looks nor background. Compared to Xiao Lulang, he wasn't even worth mentioning. Everyone quickly turned their cold gazes to Xiao Lulang again. They whispered to each other from time to time, mostly criticizing Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang sat upright on the cushion. He didn't seem to hear it, but he also seemed to ignore it. The hall was noisy, but his figure was a bit thin. Ning Ziyuan took a sip of tea and suddenly said to him, "I went to the Ministry of Rights to check the test papers. I read your essay. You are indeed worthy of being the top scholar. Don't worry about other people's opinions. Royal Prince and also did a good job in his essay, but compared to you, he lacked a bit of innocence. I think that's what really moved His Majesty. On the other hand, my essay wasn't as good as Yuanyu's, but in the end, I got third place and he got fourth. Maybe it's because Yuanyu is the grandson of Grand Secretary Yuan. It's easy for him to get ahead. For a poor student like me, if I don't get into the top 3, I have almost no hope of getting a meteoric rise." Xiao Lulang looked at Ning Ziyuan in surprise. He had threatened him so much yesterday, but he could still say this to him. It seemed that he wasn't unaware of the rumors. Xiao Lulang looked away. "You still have the guts to sit here and talk to me. Aren't you afraid of getting yourself into trouble?" Ning Ziyuan was silent for a while before he said in a low voice, "If it weren't for you, I would be the one being ostracized." Ning Ziyuan was also born into a poor family. Unlike Xiao Lulang, who was favored by a wealthy family, he had no one to back him up. If he was ostracized, he might not be able to stay in the capital anymore. Xiao Liulang's results were better than his, and his halo was bigger than his. He attracted everyone's jealousy, and almost no one had the time to ostracize him. "Hang in there." Ningji took a deep breath and said, "Otherwise, if you fall, I'll be next," Xiao Lulang, who was almost touched by him. After the emperor came over, everyone was silent. When the emperor saw Prince and seat, he didn't say anything. After he sat down, he had the musicians play the song Deer Cry. Then, all the scholars chanted the song Dear Cry together. Finally, he selected 3 scholars to each write a poem, which set off the academic atmosphere very well. The meals for the Dear Cry banquet were all prepared by the imperial kitchen. This was much more sumptuous than the simple meals on the day of the small exam and the court examination. Many people had never eaten palace food in their lives. Today was probably their first and last time. Even though the emperor's power was terrifying, they still ate with relish. After all, it was really too delicious. The emperor left after a while, leaving the scene to the officials of the Ministry of Rites. Near evening, the banquet ended, and the scholars left one by one. Xiao Lulang, Feng Lin, and the other 3 walked out of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Not long after they left, a eunuch came over with a smile. "Excuse me, is this Xiao Zhuangyuan?" Xiao Lulang looked at him indifferently. "Who are you?" The eunuch smiled. "My surname is Huang. I am the Crown Prince's servant. The Crown Prince wants to see Xiao Zhuangyuan. Please come to the Eastern Palace." Xiao Lulang paused. "Why does the Crown Prince want to see me?" The eunuch smiled. "I am just a messenger. If Xiao Zhuangyuan has any questions, you can ask the Crown Prince face to face." Du Ruhan frowned. He couldn't refuse the Crown Prince's summons. Feng Lin was very happy. "Lulang, the Crown Prince wants to see you." "Yes, I know." Xiao Lulang nodded. He said to the eunuch, "Please lead the way." The eunuch made a gesture of invitation. "Xiao Zhuangyuan, please. You go back first. No need to wait for me. Lu Quan will come to pick me up in a while." Xiao Lulang finished speaking and walked towards the Eastern Palace with the eunuch. Feng Lin smiled and said, "The Crown Prince has heard of Liu Long's talent and wants to win over Lulang, right?" He couldn't be blamed for thinking so. The Crown Prince was Marquis Xuanping's nephew. If Xiao Lulang looked like Marquis Xuanping's son, then wouldn't he look like the Crown Prince's cousin? They were a family. Du Ruhan curled his lips and said, "The Crown Prince married his cousin's fiancée. Who knows how the Crown Prince will feel when he sees someone who looks like his cousin?" Feng Lin trembled. I forgot about that. The capital, the Lu residence. The once magnificent Lu residence had long been confiscated. Now, the Lu residence was squeezed into a small, shabby house. Although it was called the Lu residence, it was only left with one master, Lu Yisheng. There was also a mute slave and an old woman who was too old to do anything. When Gu Jiao stepped into the Lu residence, Lu Yisheng was squatting on the ground. He was using an old brush soaked in water to practice writing on a broken stone slab he picked up from outside. He didn't have money to buy a pen and paper, so he could only practice in this way. When he saw a small figure suddenly appear in the courtyard, he was slightly startled. A trace of embarrassment flashed in his eyes, but it was replaced by self-mockery in an instant. He was already lowly to the dust. What dignity did he have to speak of? He continued to practice, ignoring Gu Jiao. The mute slave in the courtyard vigilantly grabbed a stick and stood in front of Lu Yisheng. It seemed that Lu Yisheng was often bullied. Lu Yisheng smiled coldly. "Back down, Anu. You can't beat her." Anu didn't back down. He stared at Gu Jiao like a tiger watching its prey. He was young, about the same age as Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Jiao took a piece of candy from her pocket and handed it to him. "Do you want to eat?" Anu's eyes lit up. He drooled, but he didn't go forward. Instead, he stood his ground. Lu Yisheng sneered. "Go ahead and eat. If she wants to kill you, she doesn't have to go through so much trouble." Anu hesitated for a while before putting down the stick. Like a little monkey, he grabbed the candy that Gu Jiao handed to him. It was as if he would be killed by Gu Jiao if he was a second slower. After he took the candy, he took a small bite of it and put the rest into his pocket. "What are you doing here?" Lu Yisheng asked. "Here's your medicine." Gu Jiao threw a bundle of medicine to him. "It's the last course of treatment, but I don't feel pain anymore." He was referring to his cholecystitis. "You have to take it even if it doesn't hurt." "This is the treatment," Gu Jiao said. Lu Yisheng said, "I don't have money." Gu Jiao said, I know you don't have money. Sell me the information, and I won't charge you for the medicine. Neither of them mentioned the bet or the hairpin, as if they had both forgotten about it. Lu Yisheng's hand, which was practicing calligraphy, paused. What information do you want? Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Did your Lu family really rebel? Lu Yisheng chuckled. So what if they did? So what if they didn't? Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. If they did rebel, they should know a lot about the imperial palace. For example, do you know how to enter the imperial palace? Lu Yisheng was speechless. Meanwhile, Eunuch Huang was leading Xiao Lulang to the eastern palace. Just as they were about to pass by the imperial garden, Xiao Lulang suddenly stopped in his tracks. Eunuch Huang asked, Scholar Xiao, what's the matter? Nothing. He thought he heard a cat meow. It was a very faint sound, but it made his hair stand on end. Eunuch Huang smiled. If there's nothing else, let's go quickly. Don't keep the crown prince waiting. Xiao Lulang nodded with an indifferent expression. Not far away, a white cat was lying on a banyan tree. It was happily gnawing on the dried fish on the tree. The two of them passed through the imperial garden. Just as they were about to pass by the banyan tree, a young palace maid suddenly ran over from the other entrance of the imperial garden. Not good, not good. Someone's coming. Xiao Lulang turned around. Eunuch Huang frowned. He pointed at a young eunuch beside him and said, Go and see what's going on. I'll bring Scholar Xiao to see His Highness. Yes. The young eunuch quickly left. Unexpectedly, the young palace maid pushed him aside and ran all the way to Eunuch Huang. She fell to her knees. Eunuch Huang, it's great that you're here. I beg you, please save His Highness. His Highness is about to die. Who's she? Xiao Lulang asked Eunuch Huang. Eunuch Huang was furious. He tried to break free from the young palace maid, but she hugged his leg tightly. Eunuch Huang, please save His Highness. Eunuch Huang was flustered and exasperated. How can I manage His Highness? You have to report this to His Majesty. The young palace maid cried, If I could see His Majesty, why would I beg you? Please take me to see the crown prince. Although His Highness is a hostage, he's still a prince of Chun State. You can't just ignore him. His Highness has been sick for a long time. What happened? Princess Ning, who was taking a walk near the imperial garden, also heard the commotion. She slowly walked over with the help of a servant. Noble consort Zhuang valued Princess Ning's pregnancy very much. She especially asked the emperor for grace to allow her to raise the fetus in her everlasting palace. Eunuch Huang saw noble consort Zhuang walking over and looked at the banyan tree not far away. A dark light flashed through his eyes. He secretly cursed the young palace made for ruining things. If a hostage of Chun State is sick, then so be it. He's here as a hostage, not as a prince. Don't you know that? He was so angry. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-_8964-282/112842924. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 260. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. This servant greets Princess Ning. Eunuch Huang bowed. The little maid hurriedly knelt down and cowed out. Greetings, Princess Ning. Xiao Lulang saluted Princess Ning with his hands folded in front of his chest. He looked calm and magnanimous. Xiao Lulang was wearing the top scorer's uniform, so it was easy to recognize him. However, Princess Ning had never seen the young Marquis of Jiaodu. In addition, noble consort Zhuang didn't tell her about the outside world in order to let her take care of the fetus. Therefore, she didn't know about the rumors about the new top scorer for the time being. Princess Ning nodded politely. After all, he was an outsider, so it was inconvenient for her to have too much contact with him. Her eyes fell on the little maid kneeling on the ground. I remember you are the maid of the 6th prince of the Chun state. Did something happen to your prince? The little palace maid sobbed and said, in reply to Princess Ning, His Highness the 6th prince is sick and no imperial doctor has come to treat him. I'm worried that if this goes on, His Highness the 6th prince will get sick. Princess Ning's hand gently touched her belly. A trace of complexity flashed through her eyes. You go back first. I will report this to my mother. It was fine if she didn't encounter this kind of thing. But if she did, she couldn't ignore it. Moreover, she should consider it as accumulating good karma for the child in her belly. Yes. Thank you, Princess Ning. The little maid kowtowed a few times, thanked her, and got up to leave. Princess Ning also left the imperial garden accompanied by the maid. Farewell, Princess Ning. Eunuch Huang bowed. He didn't straighten up until Princess Ning disappeared at the end of the path. He smiled at Xiao Lulang and said, Xiao Lulang, this way please. Xiao Lulang nodded and continued to walk in the direction of the East Palace with Eunuch Huang. Xiao Lulang noticed that when they passed by the tall banyan tree, Eunuch Huang glanced at the tree intentionally or unintentionally, as if he was looking for something. However, there was nothing on the tree. Xiao Lulang retracted his gaze. For some reason, he had a feeling that he had dodged a calamity. It was very strange. After Princess Ning returned to the palace, she reported her encounter with the little palace maid of the Chun state to noble consort Zhuang. Noble consort Zhuang hated the hostage of the Chun state because the children of the Zhuang family had been taken hostage in the Chun state and suffered a lot in the Chun state. She wanted the hostage of the Chun state to experience the pain that Commandery, Prince, and had suffered. However, she was only thinking about it in her heart. She wasn't that stupid to actually do anything. Noble consort Zhuang went to the imperial study and told the emperor about the serious illness of the Chun state's hostage. The emperor instructed Eunuch Wei to arrange for an imperial physician to go over. Lu family house. The sun was shining brightly. Lu Yisheng sat on a small bench in the front yard and made hemp rope. A new and the old woman were weaving baskets on the side. This was the main source of income for the family. A basket could be sold for 10 copper coins, and a hemp rope could be sold for 1 copper coin. If they were lucky, they could make 4 baskets a day and make 10 hemp ropes, which was 50 copper coins. However, because Lu Yisheng was often bullied, there was no guarantee that he could work every day. There were 2 people sitting across from Lu Yisheng. One was Gu Jiao, who was stroking the white cat, and the other was a young man in a blue robe. The young man's eyebrows and eyes were somewhat similar to Lu Yisheng's. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. The young man was handsome. He was a bit less exquisite than Lu Yisheng, but he could still be considered an elegant and handsome man. His luxurious clothes didn't fit in with the dilapidated courtyard, and he didn't look like the down-and-out Lu Yisheng at all. However, such a person was sitting on a rattan chair, playing with the fan in his hand while leisurely talking to Lu Yisheng. You finally contacted me, he said with a smile. Lu Yisheng was sweating profusely from making hemp rope. It wasn't clear whether he didn't have time to talk to him or whether he was too lazy to talk to him. The young man didn't get angry. He opened his folding fan, fanned himself, and closed it with a snap. He looked at Gu Jiao and asked, "Who is she?" "Doctor." Lu Yisheng finally spoke. His eyes were fixed on the hemp rope in his hand. He didn't look at the person he was talking to, but he guessed that he was asking about Gu Jiao. The young man patted his palm with his folding fan and said meaningfully, "There are still doctors who are willing to talk to you these days? Not ordinary doctors, right?" Between the lines, it was clear that he knew Lu Yisheng's situation like the back of his hand. Gu Jiao was happily stroking the cat. She turned her head and looked at the young man indifferently. Of course, I'm not an ordinary doctor. I'm a miracle doctor. The young man was speechless. Do all the women from the Zhao kingdom like to flatter themselves so much? Do you know who he is? The young man asked Gu Jiao this time. Lu Yisheng. Gu Jiao continued stroking the cat. The young man smiled and pointed at Lu Yisheng with his folding fan. He's my cousin. Huh? Gu Jiao blinked. This young man was none other than the sixth prince of the Chun kingdom, who had pretended to be ill in the palace. Gu Jiao had planned to sneak into the palace herself, but Lu Yisheng said that she couldn't enter, but she could send news in. Not long after, the man who claimed to be the sixth prince of the Chun kingdom came to Lu Yisheng with a white cat he had caught. Gu Jiao looked at Lu Yisheng. You're from the Chun kingdom? Oh, was it really okay to tell her such an important thing? Gu Jiao's reaction was calmer than the sixth prince had expected. However, she wasn't surprised when he told her his identity, so the sixth prince was relieved. She was a calm and collected little girl. Gu Jiao continued stroking the cat. Why aren't you leaving? Lu Yisheng said to the sixth prince. The sixth prince smiled. It's rare for you to contact me. How can I not come and stay for a while? I almost thought that you wouldn't contact me for the rest of your life. As he spoke, he turned to look at Gu Jiao, not hiding his relationship with Lu Yisheng at all. I came to the Zhao kingdom as a hostage to persuade him to go back with me. He won't listen to me. You might as well help me persuade him. Gu Jiao, I really don't want to know so much. See the guest out. Lu Yisheng didn't even look up as he ordered the guest to leave. Anu put down the basket she was weaving halfway, got up, and came to the sixth prince's side. She bowed to him and motioned for him to leave. The sixth prince, who had come to this shabby place, was actually kicked out. The sixth prince helplessly patted the rattan chair and left with a sigh. The white cat was too cute. It was chubby, and its fur was soft and shiny. Gu Jiao was very satisfied with stroking it. The white cat was also very comfortable. It lay on Gu Jiao's lap with its forepaws in the air, exposing its most vulnerable belly to Gu Jiao. Lu Yisheng didn't ask Gu Jiao to leave. He continued to knit the hemp rope for a while and suddenly said, My mother is from the Qin kingdom. Gu Jiao stopped stroking the cat and turned to look at him. Lu Yisheng lowered his head and continued to knit the hemp rope. His hands were slender and beautiful, but they had been worn out by life. She is sisters with Yuan Tang's mother. Oh, so the prince of the Chun kingdom was called Yuan Tang. Gu Jiao understood. Two sisters. One entered the palace as a concubine, and the other went to the enemy country to become a spy. The family that could cultivate these sisters was not simple. Does the emperor know? Gu Jiao asked. Lu Yisheng shook his head. I don't know if he knows. When the Lu family was convicted, Lu Yisheng was too young. No one told him what happened to the Lu family. He watched as the Lu family was confiscated, beheaded, and exiled. In the end, only he, a child, and an old woman with a weak body were left. Anu was picked up along the way. Lu Yisheng thought for a while and said, He probably doesn't know, but it doesn't matter. I'm already a stray dog. Why don't you leave? Gu Jiao asked. Lu Yisheng said self-mockingly, Where should I go? The Chun kingdom? In the Zhao kingdom, I'm a stray dog. It's the same in the Chun kingdom. Half of the Zhao kingdom's blood flowed in his body. In the eyes of the Chun kingdom, he was not clean. Gu Jiao didn't try to persuade him again. Everyone had their own life and their own choices. Gu Jiao put down the white cat and got up to say goodbye. I'm leaving. Lu Yisheng looked at the confused white cat on the ground and asked her, You're not taking the cat with you? You can take care of it, Gu Jiao said. Before he could say that he didn't have the money to take care of the cat, she took out a money bag and put it on the table. It's for its food. After saying that, she stepped out of the courtyard. Lu Yixing didn't understand. He had been stroking the cat for 2 hours. He obviously liked it very much. Why did he have to take care of it? How could such a big clinic not be able to take care of a cat? Of course, he was just puzzled. He didn't ask Gu Jiao. He didn't even ask why Gu Jiao went to the palace to catch a cat. Why would he ask this? Some people didn't know each other well, but they could trust each other. The white cat had been stroked for the whole afternoon. Suddenly, no one stroked it. It was very lonely. It jumped on Lu Yixing's leg and asked for a pet. Lu Yixing didn't have time to stroke the cat. He ignored it and continued to make the hemp rope. Do you know what will happen if you don't catch the cat in time? It was Yuan Tang's voice. Lu Yixing looked back and saw Yuan Tang coming out of the central room. It seemed that he came in from the back door. Lu Yixing frowned. You haven't left yet? I told you that you finally came to see me. I have to stay a little longer. Yuan Tang lay down on the rattan chair where he'd been lying before. He played with the folding fan with one hand and put the other hand behind his head. He continued the previous topic. If you don't catch the cat in time, the new top scorer will be hit by the cat. The cat will scare the top scorer, and the top scorer will also scare the cat. In the end, the frightened cat will knock down Princess Ning, who is passing by. Princess Ning is pregnant, and the child will most likely be lost. The new top scorer, Princess Ning, and the cat's owner. It's killing 3 birds with 1 stone. What a beautiful plan. Gu Jiao wanted to catch the cat, but Lu Yixing really just wanted to catch the cat. He looked at Yuan Tang in confusion. How do you know? Yuan Tang waved at the white cat. The white cat jumped down in disgust and reluctantly jumped on Yuan Tang's leg. Yuan Tang stroked it and said, "Because this is my cat. Someone tricked my cat with dried fish." As he spoke, he picked up the white cat and said coldly, "You stupid thing, you almost got me into trouble. Next time, don't blame me for stewing you into a pot of cat meat." Gu Jiao's dream was only related to Xiao Lulang. She didn't see the fate of the white cat and its owner. Meow, the white cat meowed guiltily. Yuan Tang poked the white cat's belly. The cat was guilty and obediently allowed him to poke it. Compared to how I know, shouldn't you be more curious about how that girl knew? I guessed it based on the situation at the scene, but that girl seemed to have expected it. Lu Yixing thought of something and suddenly fell silent. Yuan Tang smiled mysteriously. Do you want me to investigate that girl? Lu Yixing said seriously, You'd better not. Yuan Tang asked, What's wrong? Are you angry? Lu Yixing looked down and twisted the rope. I have nothing to do with her. Why would I be angry? But if you investigate her, it will bring her trouble if you expose yourself. She helped you by accident. Yuan Tang thought for a moment and nodded. You're right. He looked at the sky. It's getting late. I really should go now. This is for you. Yuan Tang took out a few banknotes and placed them on the table. Lu Yixing said, without hesitation, Take it away. Yuan Tang's teeth hurt. He sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at him in confusion. You take what the girl gives you, but you don't want what I give you? You'd rather not have enough to eat than accept my charity. You don't want to have anything to do with the Qin state? Are you really going to give it to me? Lu Yixing looked at him and asked. Yes. Yuan Tang opened his eyes wide and nodded. Lu Yixing said, Leave the cat. Take the rest. Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang took the banknotes away in the end. He knew that if Lu Yixing said he didn't want them, he would rather throw them away than take them. He left the white cat behind. After everyone left, Lu Yixing put the cat on the table. At the same time, his gaze fell on the money pouch. He hesitated for a moment, then picked up the money pouch. He opened it and found that there were not only a few ingots of silver inside, but also 3 hairpin flowers. Eastern Palace. Xiao Lulang met the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince looked at the youth in front of him in a daze. He didn't speak for a long time. He stood up and walked in front of Xiao Lulang. He walked a circle around him and looked at every strand of his hair from top to bottom. After a long time, he finally found his voice. You're the new top scorer? The examinee with the surname Xiao? Yes. Xiao Lulang looked straight ahead. Compared to the crown prince, he was much calmer. After all, it wasn't his first day in the capital. There were some things he had to face sooner or later. He had thought about it many times and had learned to be calm. The crown prince returned to the main seat in disbelief. He stared at the face that was so similar to the one in his memory. He opened his mouth and said, "What's your name?" "Xiao Lulang." "How can you have such a simple name?" Xiao Lulang said, "The elders in my family can't read. I was born on the 6th day of the new year, so I was called Lulang." The crown prince asked suspiciously, "You said you were born on the 6th day of a new year? How many months?" Xiao Lulang said, "November." "Cousin, it's New Year's Eve." The crown prince murmured. He pinched his fingers and looked at his crutches and legs. "What's wrong with your legs?" Xiao Lulang, "I was injured a year or two ago." The crown prince, "You can't get better?" Xiao Lulang, "I don't know. He was a cripple, so he wasn't perfect." The crown prince cleared his throat and said, "What is your relationship with Marquis Xianping's manor?" "It doesn't matter," Xiao Lulang said calmly. He didn't look like his cousin, not at all. His cousin wasn't so cold. His cousin respected him and always looked happy when he saw him. His cousin's smile was warm, unlike this fellow who was cold from head to toe. This face was too similar. It was like his cousin had come alive. The only difference was that he was missing the mole under his right eye. The crown prince's face was pale. Eunuch Huang said in a small voice, "Your Highness, are you okay? Why don't this servant take Xiao Zhuangyuan away first? You can summon him for questioning another day." The crown prince waved his hand, indicating for Eunuch Huang to leave. He looked at Xiao Lulang again and said seriously, "Do you like to eat chestnuts?" "I like them," Xiao Lulang said. His cousin didn't like them. The crown prince said again, "Do you eat spicy food?" Xiao Lulang said, "Yes." The crown prince made a hand signal to a palace servant. The palace servant brought over a bowl of spicy meat. Xiao Lulang looked at the meat that was covered in spicy food. He didn't even raise his eyelids. His jade-like slender fingers picked up a small piece and slowly ate it. The crown prince looked at him without blinking. He didn't want to miss any of his reactions. His cousin couldn't eat spicy food. The slightest bit of spicy food would make him spit out his tongue. This kind of meat would make his face turn red. However, Xiao Lulang ate it very easily. The crown prince didn't know why he let out a sigh of relief. Xiao Lulang left the imperial palace. Dusk was endless. The imperial city was shrouded in a warm orange glow. Lu Quan's carriage was parked near the imperial palace. Xiao Lulang walked over with his cane. He had just gotten into the carriage when he found Gu Jiao sitting in the carriage waiting for him. Gu Jiao leaned against the wall of the carriage. Her eyes were slightly closed like she was asleep. She was a little quiet and a little obedient. Xiao Liulang's gaze swept past her soft lips. His Adam's apple moved. He quickly moved his gaze away and got into the carriage. The carriage shook slightly. Gu Jiao woke up. She opened her eyes. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. "You're here, N." Xiao Lulang sat down on the bench across from her. Lu Quan waved the horsewhip and the carriage wheels started to turn. When the old chancellor first bought this carriage, he didn't consider that it would be used by a second person. Therefore, the space wasn't big. When the two sat in the carriage, their breaths quickly mixed together. It was really hot at the end of April. Xiao Lulang thought to himself, "Last night, I drank too much," he said. N. Gu Jiao didn't mind. Xiao Lulang composed himself. "I won't do it again." N. Gu Jiao looked at him with a puzzled expression. Xiao Lulang didn't look at her eyes. He just clenched his fists on his thighs and said seriously, "I won't drink too much again and treat you like that." Oh. Gu Jiao was disappointed. Looking at the disappointment that flashed through her eyes, Xiao Lulang didn't know why, but his head heated up. "I will when I'm sober." Gu Jiao, Xiao Lulang was dumbfounded after he said that. He swore that he didn't want to say that at first. He wanted to tell her that he wouldn't do anything rash and frivolous to her when he wasn't sober. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, why did it become another sentence? I will when I'm sober. Is this something that a human should say? Too rash. I've really studied the books of sages in vain. Xiao Liulang's face suddenly flushed red. He wanted to find a hole to hide in. I didn't mean that. I didn't want to. Xiao Lulang found it hard to say those two words. Gu Jiao said on his behalf, didn't you want a kiss? Xiao Lulang was embarrassed. N. Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said to her fingers, then do you want to sleep with her? N. Xiao Liulang's body trembled. He shook his head violently. No. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112819249. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 261. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. The kind that cannot be explained clearly and cannot be defended. Even during the imperial examinations, her brain did not cramp up like this. When the carriage reached home, Xiao Lulang got off the carriage as if he was escaping. Gu Jiao tilted her head and happily took out her little notebook. Flipping to the last page, she wrote down an important entry. The first day, my husband wanted to sleep with me. The day to report to Hanlin Academy was the end of May. After the second and third place exams, Xiao Lulang basically did not need to go to the Imperial College. Even if he went, it would be to settle the transfer procedures. That's right, entering Hanlin Academy was to become an official on the surface, but in reality, it was still to study. Gu Jiao did not go to school in ancient times, but from what Xiao Lulang had told her, entering Hanlin Academy was equivalent to studying at public expense in her previous life. The top 3 places were already guaranteed to be a graduate student and had the honor of becoming a civil servant of the country. The top 3 places were to take the exams again 3 years later. If one passed, they would become a civil servant of the country. If one failed, then sorry, they would have to go back to where they came from. If one was lucky, they could get the position of a county magistrate. If one was unlucky, they could only be a teacher in a provincial school or a prefectural school. With Du Ruhan's knowledge, it would not be a problem for him to pass the exams. However, Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were in a bit of danger. Every day, they would visit Xiao Lulang to ask for guidance. Xiao Lulang naturally did not spare any effort to teach them. Occasionally, when the old chancellor was cooking for the old lady, he would not give them any guidance. Feng Lin whispered to Xiao Lulang, Lulang, your granduncle is very impressive. I feel that he explained the question more thoroughly than you. This sentence actually had a very high evaluation of Xiao Lulang. In any case, Feng Lin was someone who had studied at the Imperial College and had the best teaching resources in the entire Zhao country. However, Feng Lin still thought that Xiao Lulang spoke the best. It wasn't that Feng Lin had never met someone who was more knowledgeable than Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was a genius, but he was only 18 years old. His life experience and knowledge foundation were there for all to see, but his teaching methods and perspective were the most beneficial to Feng Lin. Feng Lin had only seen one person more powerful than Xiao Lulang, and that was his son-in-law. M.N. Xiao Lulang thought to himself. That was the former chancellor of the Imperial College, How could he not be good at teaching? Feng Lin sighed. With your granduncle's knowledge, it's a pity that he didn't take the imperial examinations. Xiao Lulang, do you know about the 6th Yuan dynasty? Apart from the founding of Zhao country, he was the only person who had conquered all 3 major and minor states. However, at this time, the top scholar of Zhao country was wearing an apron and busying himself in front of the stove. The old lady wanted to eat brown sugar glutinous rice, cake sprinkled with white sesame. Gu Jiao went to the medical center early in the morning. Recently, the medical center's business was booming. On the one hand, it had a good reputation, so there were a lot of patients coming to see them. On the other hand, there were a lot of orders from the pharmaceutical factory, so they were very busy. Jiang Shi's body was almost healed, but he had been lying in the hospital bed for too long. Plus, he had some surgeries, so he needs to do some rehabilitation for a while. Gu Jiao taught Dr. Song the movements of rehabilitation and asked Dr. Song to take him to do rehabilitation twice a day. After Gid recovers, are we going to leave? Dr. Song and Jiang Shi were doing rehabilitation in Gu Jiao's courtyard. Little Jiang Li, who was watching from the side, suddenly asked. Jiang Shi's body slightly stiffened. Dr. Song smiled and said, Little Jiang Li, are you reluctant to leave? Little Jiang Li nodded seriously. She and her brother had been wandering for too long. They were sold from one place to another. They often didn't have enough to eat and warm clothes. They were also beaten. After coming to the medical center, they were the happiest days in the past few years. No one bullied her and her brother. She ate well every day and slept well. The people in the medical center were very good. I can work. Can I stay? Little Jiang Li asked. Dr. Song was dumbfounded. Although he also liked the brother and sister very much, the medical center can't let them stay. The brother and sister were illegal residents. After being discharged from the hospital, they must be sent back to their residence. This was the law. The medical center was not qualified to let them stay. Jiang Shi said to little Jiang Li, Don't talk about it. Let's go out and play. Little Jiang Li sighed. Okay. Little Jiang Li went to the counter to help get the medicine. Gu Jiao saw dozens of patients in the morning. It was not easy to send away the last patient, but another distinguished guest came. Miss Gu. It was Imperial Concubine Rui Wang, who she hadn't seen for a long time. Imperial Concubine Rui Wang was 4 months pregnant. Her body was rounder, and her cheeks were chubby. Her complexion was ruddy, but her clothes were loose, so it didn't show that she was pregnant. Gu Jiao checked her pulse. The pulse is very stable. The fetus is very healthy. Imperial Concubine Rui Wang didn't have much joy on her face. She said in a low mood, My sister-in-law's child is gone. Today, she didn't come to Gu Jiao to check her pulse. She came to complain. There was no one in the house that she could talk to. She had to be more cautious in the palace. After thinking about it, only Gu Jiao could make her let down all her guard. Gu Jiao asked, You which sister-in-law? Princess Ning? The young madam of the Du family was also her sister-in-law. Imperial Concubine Rui Wang nodded sullenly. Yes, it's Princess Ning. She didn't feel well last night and didn't sleep well. In the morning, there was news in the palace that she had a miscarriage. It's a boy. Gu Jiao was not surprised. In that dream, Princess Ning didn't look good. Whether she was knocked down by a cat or not, the fetus would be miscarried. It was just a matter of whether it was sooner or later. Imperial Concubine Rui Wang said sadly. They all blamed Princess Ning, saying that she shouldn't eat the chili. But what's wrong with eating chili? I also ate it. So many pregnant women ate it. This is the 3rd time that she has a miscarriage. I don't know if she can get pregnant again in the future. Many people were staring at Princess Ning's belly. Princess Ning also knew that she had a lot of responsibilities. She carried too much pressure, which was not a good thing for a pregnant woman. Gu Jiao handed her a handkerchief. You are pregnant. Don't be too sad. Well, Imperial Concubine Rui Wang took the handkerchief. She cried and tried to calm down. You are right. I can't be sad. I can't hurt the fetus. Imperial concubine Rui Wang felt better after crying in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao originally thought that the white cat incident was that someone wanted to kill Princess Ning's fetus through Xiao Lulang. It was killing 2 or 3 birds with one stone. But if Princess Ning's fetus was so bad that she could miscarry naturally, there was no need to do it. Therefore, no one knew whether someone wanted to get rid of Princess Ning's fetus or Princess Ning wanted to frame someone else with a fetus that could not be saved at all. Obviously, Princess Ning's target was not Xiao Lulang. Otherwise, there would have been trouble in the imperial garden just now. Gu Jiao didn't care about the internal strife in the palace. She only cared about the person who used the white cat to scare Xiao Lulang. The other person seemed to know Xiao Lulang very well and knew that he was afraid of cats. Imperial concubine Rui Wang. Gu Jiao paused and asked her, "Is there anyone in Marquis Xuanping's mansion who is afraid of cats? For example, Marquis Xianping and his sons?" Well, Imperial concubine Rui Wang racked her brains to think. Marquis Xianping is definitely not afraid of cats. He has been on the battlefield. He is not afraid of cats and dogs. As for his sons, I don't know. Why do you ask this? Just asking. Gu Jiao said. Oh. Imperial concubine Rui Wang didn't suspect anything. She said, "Our Du family doesn't interact much with Marquis Xuanping's mansion. But that woman Wen Linlang cough. Halfway through her words, she realized that she was speaking without thinking. She lowered her voice and corrected herself. The crown prince consort often goes to Marquis Xuanping's mansion. She and the young marquis were engaged when they were young. They grew up as childhood sweethearts. She knows the people in the marquis's mansion better." Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, "I heard that the crown prince consort does not have a high birth. Why was she able to form a marriage alliance with Marquis Xuanping's mansion?" Imperial concubine Rui Wang twisted her lips and said, "Isn't it because she saved the young marquis when he was young? That was when I was 5. When Linlang, the crown prince consort was also 5 years old. The young marquis, at 2 years old, fell into an ice hole. It was the crown prince consort who was lying on the ice, holding him with both hands to prevent him from sinking. Later on, the young marquis was saved, but the crown prince consort's hands were ruined from soaking in the ice water. According to the grand physician, she had to cut off her hands to save her life. Princess Xinyang and Marquis Xianping probably both felt that they owed her, so they decided on this marriage. However, Marquis Xuanping's mansion found the best physician in Zhao Kingdom and healed the crown prince consort's hands. "Is that so?" Gu Jiao murmured. Imperial concubine Rui Wang snorted. She and the young marquis had a good relationship when they were young. "Do you know why she was able to take Zhuang Xianji as her master?" "That's right, you still don't know that she became the disciple of Grand Tutor Zhuang's 4th son, Zhuang Xian. He only accepted her because of Princess Xinyang. I admit that she has talent, but if it wasn't for Marquis Xuanping's mansion and Princess Xinyang's mansion, who would know who Wen Linlang is? But look at what she's done. Once the young marquis died, she married the crown prince." Gu Jiao didn't object to a person pursuing their own happiness, but the prerequisite was that she didn't hurt others. As Imperial concubine Rui Wang spoke, she went off topic and started to ridicule all kinds of crown prince consorts. Gu Jiao already knew what she wanted to know and had a rough idea. In the afternoon, she went to the Imperial College to pick up little Jingkong from school. Little Jingkong came out with Qin Chuyu and Su Songkong ever since they caused trouble in the Eastern Palace and beat up Ming. The 3 of them hadn't gone to the Imperial Palace for a long time. But today, Qin Chuyu couldn't hold back anymore. He found a huge bird's nest on a big tree in the Imperial Palace and wanted to dig it out with his friends. Little Jingkong ran to Gu Jiao and hugged Gu Jiao's leg. He rubbed his little head against her body. "Jiao Jiao, I missed you." Gu Jiao patted his little bald head. "Did you have fun today?" "Yes." Little Jingkong looked up at Gu Jiao and said, "Jiao Jiao, can I go to the Imperial Palace to play?" Marquis Xianping didn't tell Gu Jiao about what happened last time, so Gu Jiao didn't know that the children caused trouble in the imperial palace. But even if she knew, Gu Jiao wouldn't give up eating for fear of choking. The emperor had lost his horse in front of Gu Jiao. As the emperor's son, Gu Jiao was well aware of Qin Shuyu's identity. Gu Jiao didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked, "Does your family agree?" Qin Shuyu nodded repeatedly. "Yes, yes. If you don't believe me, my sister-in-law will come to pick me up later. You can ask her." Speak of the devil. The crown princess's carriage stopped at the entrance of the imperial college. A young eunuch walked down from the carriage and came to Qin Shuyu with a smile. "Seventh young master, I'm here to pick you up." Qin Shuyu asked immediately, "Is my sister-in-law here?" The young eunuch froze and said with a smile, "Young madam, something came up today, and she can't come. She asked me to pick you up." Qin Shuyu was frustrated. "She said she would pick me up. How can she break her promise?" The young eunuch said immediately, "Young madam didn't break her promise. To be honest, young madam went to buy sesame cakes for you. Didn't you say that you liked the sesame cakes from last time?" Hearing that she was going to buy cakes for him, Qin Shuyu was relieved. "Okay, let's go." Qin Shuyu and little Jing Kong were about to get into the carriage, but Su Kanji was hesitant. Ever since his father took him home and beat him up, his father had told him not to go to the imperial palace to cause trouble again. He didn't dare to go. Little Jing Kong said, "Why don't we go to my house? There's an orchard near my house with bird nests." Su Kanji agreed. Qin Shuyu sighed helplessly. "If you insist, then okay," he said to the young eunuch. "I'll go back after playing for a while." The young eunuch said, "Oh, but what?" Qin Shuyu threw off his backpack and ran away with his two friends like a hurricane. He was just a little fatty, but she didn't know how he could run so fast. Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. It was a pity that she couldn't go to the imperial palace with them. Gu Jiao followed the kids to the orchard, with the Su family and the eunuchs in the imperial palace watching over them. Gu Jiao didn't have to worry about anything. They ran out of rice and spices at home. Gu Jiao planned to go to the market to buy some spices, but the market was out of spices. There was a spice shop on Chang'an Avenue, which wasn't far from here. Gu Jiao carried a small basket and went to Chang'an Avenue. Chang'an Avenue was more crowded than Xuanwu Avenue. There were many carriages and pedestrians. It was close to dinner time, and all the tea houses and restaurants were filled with the aroma of delicious food. Steamed buns. Fresh meat steamed buns. A hawker shouted on the side of the road, "Miss, do you want a steamed bun?" The hawker looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao shook her head. No. She went into the spice shop and bought some spices. When she came out, she saw someone selling tonghalu. She bought one for the kids, the old lady, Gu Yan, and Xiaoshan. The small basket was heavy. She turned to go home. After a few steps, she saw a familiar figure from the corner of her eye. She knew the person because the person was wearing a white robe and a white bamboo hat with a veil. There were two female officials with her. She had seen one of them before. That was when the brothel collapsed. She was led to the basement of the brothel by Fei Shuang and bumped into the meeting between the crown princess and Marquis Xianping. At that time, the crown princess was wearing this robe, and she had that female official with her. It was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance without any effort. Miss. The Tonghulu hawker ran after her. Gu Jiao turned to look at him. What is it? I overcharged you just now. Here. The hawker awkwardly handed 5 copper coins to Gu Jiao. I'm really sorry. No matter, Gu Jiao said. With this distraction, the crown prince consort disappeared without a trace. Gu Jiao looked at the endless stream of people and narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. In a side room of a tea house, the crown princess saw Marquis Xianping, who was wearing a heavy purple robe. Marquis Xianping was sitting upright on a chair with an official's hat. Next to him was Chang Jing, who was holding a sword. All of you wait outside. The crown prince consort ordered the 2 accompanying female officials. The 2 of them complied and obediently waited outside the door. The crown princess entered the room and gave a junior's bow to Marquis Xianping. Uncle. Marquis Xianping said, Crown Princess, this subject doesn't deserve this. The crown princess said, Uncle, don't say that. In this room, there is no crown princess, only Lin Lang. Lin Lang will always be your junior. Saluting you is something that should be done. Marquis Xianping sighed. Sit. Yes. The crown princess sat down across from Marquis Xianping. Chang Jing would not pour tea for people. He was an assassin. His hands were used to kill people and play with marbles. He stood there very arrogantly. The crown princess' eyelashes trembled. She personally reached out to pick up the teapot, but Marquis Xianping was one step ahead of her and poured her a cup of tea. The crown princess warmly said, Many thanks, uncle. Marquis Xianping put down the teapot. Why did you seek me out today? The crown princess lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. Raising her eyes to look at him, she said, Uncle, is he really not Ahung? Marquis Xianping's expression froze. Didn't housekeeper Lu tell you? He is my illegitimate son in Song County. The crown princess said dejectedly. But he looks so similar to Ahung. Marquis Xianping picked up the teacup in front of him. I also hope that he is Ahung. I also asked him in person. The crown princess' eyes moved. What did he say? Marquis Xianping faintly said. What else could he say? He naturally said that he is not. As Marquis Xianping spoke, he pulled out a draft from his sleeve. This is his draft for the imperial exam. Take a look. It looks like Ahung's handwriting. The crown princess received the draft and carefully looked it over. Her face was filled with disappointment. It is completely different from Ahung's handwriting. There are times when I really hope that the New Year's Eve from 4 years ago was just a nightmare. When I opened my eyes, Ahung was still in the manor. Marquis Xianping tightened his grip on the teacup in his hand. The crown princess guiltily said, Apologies. I should not have brought up that sad matter. It's all in the past. Marquis Xianping said. The crown princess smiled bitterly and said, If Ahung can come back alive, Princess will definitely be very happy. Speaking of these things now is meaningless. Marquis Xianping said, If there is nothing else, this official will be leaving first. The crown princess stood up and sent him out with her eyes. Chang Jing walked in front and opened the door for him. Just as he stepped over the threshold, the crown princess called out to him. Ahung is afraid of cats. Does uncle know? If uncle wants to know if he is Ahung or not. Marquis Xianping cut her off. Ahung is dead. Ahung no longer exists in this world. After Marquis Xianping left, the crown princess sat in the tea house for a little under an hour before going downstairs. Just after she left the room, the door to the room next door opened. Gu Jiao walked out of the room. Gu Jiao's eyes were very dangerous. The carriage stopped in the alley next to the tea house. The crown princess had come out in plain clothes and did not bring many guards. She only brought an expert from the imperial palace as her driver. The carriage was just ahead. She walked over to the carriage. Just as she was about to get in, a small figure suddenly jumped down from the roof. Landing behind her, a gunny sack was placed over her head. Digression. Today's update period is over. Do you have a monthly pass? This book's newest chapter is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even more quickly. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/112816985. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.